Mead all missing, so it's basically four changes. The teams look like this. It looks like a 4-3-3 formation. Zingberger in goal, Raphael, BT, Wooden May, and Mattis, former back four. In midfield, Palova, Wati, Miam. That's the three in the middle. And then up front, Catley, Blackstenius, and McBay up top. With regard to Wolfsburg's team, one change basically. They've got Froms in goal, Roche, Jensen, Hijix, Wilms, and Rude, Odegaard. I say Odegaard, it should be Odegaard actually. Rodenstreek, Hush, Brand, and Pajot are the players. To be honest, Pajot is a player to miss because she's a very good player. So I'm looking forward to this one. Now, kickoff is about 2:30 in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes time. So looking forward to this one. But Arsenal take on Wolfsburg away from home. Can they get a draw or can they get a win to take them back to the Emirates?
And Pat, just briefly, as mentioned, it's a massive blow. You can't underestimate it, really, for Arsenal's preparations ahead of this crucial tie with Leah Williamson sustaining that cruciate ligament injury in the 1-0 defeat at Manchester United in the Women's Super League in midweek. It's a devastating blow for the club, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And it's like their entire team, to be said, basically. They've got four of their top players missing. But, that gives a chance for the others who do not get a game to do themselves proud. So I think today, if they can get away with even a 1-0 loss or a draw, that will do them and bring them back home here and then finish the job. We'll have to wait and see. So it'll be interesting. This will be interesting to see what tactics their manager uses. Do they go all out and press, or do they just sit back and see what Wolfsburg do? But Wolfsburg won this competition in 2013. On the way, they actually beat Arsenal 4-1. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
That's Pat Moritz, who's keeping tabs for us on that Women's Champions League semi-final first leg taking place this afternoon. Wolfsburg against Arsenal will be across that game throughout the course of the afternoon here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Plenty of action still to come, of course, here on Football Live right the way through until 7 o'clock this evening. No further goals to tell you about in the two Premier League matches currently in progress. We'll be back around those two grounds very, very shortly here, where it remains Bournemouth 0, West Ham 2, with goals there for West Ham from Mikel Antonio and Lucas Paquetá. They lead 2-0 there. And Newcastle with an even better start at St James's Park in that crucial fourth place battle against Tottenham this afternoon, where, of course, they lead by 3-0. They open the scoring in the second minute through Jacob Murphy. They added to that 4 minutes later through Joe Linton. And then Jacob Murphy scoring his second of the game to make it 3-0. That's the way it stands at the moment in that game. As I said, plenty of action still to come between now and the close of play here on Football Live. Also coming up later on this evening, of course, further action in the German Bundesliga as Bayer Leverkusen play host to Leipzig. What a big game that is this afternoon. They kick off at 5:30 p.m. Action 2 from the Scottish Premiership as well. Aberdeen against Rangers at Pittodrie. We'll also be dipping into Italian Serie A with Milan against Lecce. Milan, of course, who progressed through to the semi-finals of the Champions League after dispatching Napoli in midweek. That kicks off at 6 p.m. And, of course, you can get the FA Cup semi-final getting underway at 5:30 this evening, as well as Brighton and Manchester United contest that semi-final at Wembley for a place in the final, where, of course, the winners will meet Manchester City, who beat Sheffield United very comfortably by 3-0 yesterday. We also have action from the Dutch Eredivisie as well this afternoon, as top of the table Feyenoord face Utrecht at home. It's top of the table, of course, at the moment, Feyenoord. That's a 4:45 p.m. kickoff, and I'm pleased to say that covering that match for us this afternoon here on Football Live and with all the team news, here is Jordan Coley. Well, we've got a few technical problems there. We'll iron those out, hopefully, very, very shortly. That's Jordan Coley, who will be or should be covering Feyenoord against Utrecht this afternoon. Kickoff is in about 27 minutes' time or so. So we'll be keeping tabs on that match for you here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Let's just check in around the grounds once again, the Premier League grounds, that is here. Before we do, there's been another goal at St James's Park.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
Have Tottenham managed to pull one back and get themselves back into it? I can tell you that is not the case. Newcastle United are absolutely running riot at St James's Park this afternoon, because it is now Newcastle United 4, Tottenham 0. Close your ears, our producer John Kane. An absolutely amazing start for Eddie Howe's men. They now lead by 4-0. Alexander Isak has scored in the 19th minute there. Let's get details of that 4th goal for the Magpies. You've got your money's worth this afternoon, Jack Hesson.
I absolutely have, Chris. Oh my word, what is going on here? Alexander Isak makes it 4, and it all comes from a Tottenham attack. They were up the field, they looked like they were making a dangerous attack on the way, and then they just lose the ball sloppily again. The ball falls to Willock on the left-hand side, and he plays again another perfect pass, a long pass towards the main attacking front men, this time to Isak, and then Isak, he's left one-on-one and an easy finish to make it 4-0 to Newcastle United in this race for the top 4. It doesn't feel like it's going to be a race for much longer. 20 minutes played. Newcastle United 4, Tottenham Hotspur 0.
Jack, let's just touch on Tottenham at the moment. I mean, where do we start? They appear to be handing full spot to Newcastle on a plate, really. Just one win in their last 4 matches, and I guess that's really been the trend if you look at their performances over the last few weeks. At home to Brighton a couple of weeks ago, of course, they got out of jail with a very fortuitous victory there, and of course beaten at home by Bournemouth last weekend. Where's it all gone wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't feel like that long ago, back in sort of September, October, people were talking about them for the league title under Conte and how great Conte was doing. Now Conte's not there, and it's all just falling apart, and I don't see how they get back from this, to be honest.
That's Jack Hesson reporting on Newcastle against Tottenham. We'll be back with Ash Sandiford very shortly for Bournemouth against West Ham for news of that second goal. I think we've had that already, possibly, from Ash. I can't remember, but we'll get it again anyway. But I can tell you, yet another goal at St James's Park. This is absolutely astonishing.
Powered by NairaBet.
And you could not have scripted this, because it is now Newcastle United 5, Tottenham 0. Pity those poor North London supporters who have made the trek all the way up to the northeast of England today, because Tottenham, with just over 20 minutes played, are losing 5-0 at Newcastle. We'll get details of that 5th goal for Eddie Howe's side very, very shortly from Jack Hesson. But first of all, let's just check back in with Ash Sandiford, who's watching Bournemouth against West Ham. Ash, I can't remember. Did you give us details of that second goal for West Ham?
No, I didn't, but I certainly will now. It's Bournemouth 0, West Ham 2, and it's another poor defensive display from Bournemouth. And again, Tavernier, he's made a huge mistake by just losing out, and the ball's been peached by Kufal, and Kufal's just raced down the right-hand side. To be honest with you, he's raced down the right side, but no one's chased him. He's got plenty of time to get his head up, crossed it into the box, and Paqueta has just nodded it into a near enough empty net as the goalkeeper was trying to cover the other side. It's poor defended again from Bournemouth, and again, Bournemouth, Gary O'Neill will be pulling his hair out. It's Bournemouth 0, West Ham 2, 20 minutes in.
So West Ham with a really solid start there at the Vitality Stadium. Of course, both of those sides still in need of points to beat the drop this season, although you could argue that there are worse sides below them in the table. But as it stands at the moment, that would lift West Ham above Bournemouth. Bournemouth, of course, who have been in some really good form, haven't they, in recent matches? 4 wins from their last 6. But at the moment, West Ham with a comfortable lead there down on the south coast of England. Bournemouth 0, West Ham 2. We are going to head straight back now to St James's Park. Newcastle against Tottenham. I really don't know where to start with this one. Jack Hesson.
Well, we start with what's happened. Alexander Isak has made it 5-0 to Newcastle United in just 20 minutes of football, and it's just so easy for Newcastle United. The Tottenham players look like they just want to get back down the road and get this over with. It comes from a simple free kick in the middle of the park. They pass it about a bit. Isaac gets it to Trippier. Trippier advances into the box, gives it back to Isaac. Isaac takes a couple of touches, hits it on goal, and like the other 4 shots, it's gone in. Yeah, this is, there's no words to describe how bad this is for Tottenham. I do feel sorry for them. Alexander Isaac looked like he perhaps felt sorry. He was shrugging his shoulders in the 5th goal, going, what is going on here? I can tell you they've already made a substitution as well. Pape Sarr's off and Sanchez is on. So substitutions already for Tottenham. It's potentially to no avail. It's 23 minutes played. Newcastle United 5. Yes, 5. Tottenham Hotspur 0.
Jack, as head coach at the moment, Christian Stellini, what can he possibly say to his players at the half-time interval?
I don't think there is anything you can say. I think, really at this stage it's damage limitation. It's just try and maybe just keep it at that, maybe get a consolation goal, hope that Newcastle put their foot off the gas. He's just got to sit there and watch this unfold. It must be absolutely horrible for him. Yeah, there's a degree of sympathy here. Really, this is just a bit of a massacre at the moment.
To put it mildly, thanks very much, Jack Hesson there reporting on Newcastle against Tottenham, where it's Newcastle 5, Tottenham 0 there. Just looking at the stats prior to kickoff, Tottenham had won 4 of their last 5 Premier League matches at St James's Park against Newcastle. Can they turn it around? Very, very unlikely, I think. So 5-0. Any news of any further goals in that game, you will hear all about it right here on Football Live.
Will the Serie A top scorer strike again? After his stoppage time consolation goal against Milan in the Champions League semi-final, Victor Osimhen is back playing in Italy tomorrow when Napoli take on Juventus in Turin. The Nigerian superstar has 21 goals in the league so far, and for every goal he scores in this match, our partners at NairaBet will give you a 500 Naira free bet. So if he scores a hat-trick, you will have 1,500 Naira to play with. Get involved and visit www.nairabet.com/bonus for more info. Minimum acca stake required is 500 Naira. 18 plus only. Please gamble responsibly.
4 hours of football every Saturday and Sunday on Brila FM with Football Live.
But it always starts with us.
All the key action from around Europe's top leagues.
Wow. Just wow.
Manchester United versus Brighton and Hove Albion in the FA Cup tomorrow. Exclusive coverage on Football Live. And Liverpool take on Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League next Sunday. Covered exclusively right here on Brila FM by Football Live. This is indeed Football Live here to Football Live on Brila FM, powered by NairaBet. Have your say on today's action and interact with Brila FM on Twitter at Brila FM 889, on Facebook at 889 Brila FM, and on Instagram, Brila FM 889.
It's drama you will not want to miss.
Well, against all the odds, Bournemouth are taking the lead and not a single shot on target up to this point.
Yeah, it was a James Ward-Prowse classic. It just curls it beautifully.
Well, it's been absolute chaos.
Yes, Josh. Football's a cruel game. You can have all the possession you want, but if you don't put the ball at the back of the net.
It was, again, Cade and Son, like the good old days.
But this show never disappoints.
Yes, well, it's Brentford 0, Crystal Palace 1 here, and it's Eberechi who's got the goal.
Oh, my word, Josh. I cannot believe how Phil Foden has not made this 2-0.
Yes, Barry, it's a second goal for Borussia Dortmund, and the Dice Watch Gabon are running away with it now.
Today's show is powered by Hollandia and Chivita. You're listening to Football Live here on Brila FM. Welcome back to Premier League matches, of course, for you on the programme this afternoon. No further goals to tell you about, which will be an absolute relief for Tottenham Hotspur supporters, no doubt, where it remains Newcastle 5, Tottenham 0. And down at the Vitality Stadium, it is Bournemouth 0, West Ham 2. Let's just wrap up a couple of full-time scores for you from some other matches that have taken place around Europe earlier on today. Of course, from the top leagues in the Eredivisie, Twente 3, Sparta Rotterdam 3 is how it ended there. At halftime, it's Go Ahead Eagles 1, Sittard 0. And in that massive game at the top of the table, where PSV are at home to Ajax, second against third, as they try and close the gap on Feyenoord. PSV are leading Ajax by a goal to nil in that game. So it's PSV 1, Ajax 0. That's the latest score for you in that game. It is Luc de Jong with a goal there for PSV. And of course, we have coverage of Feyenoord against Utrecht. That kicks off in just over 15 minutes' time. Jordan Nicoli will be keeping his eyes on that match for us here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Meanwhile, elsewhere, some other latest scores, or in fact, full-time scores to give you. Empoli 0, Inter 3 is the final score in Italian Serie A. And a couple of latest scores for you. Monza 1, Fiorentina 2. And Udinese 2, Cremonese 0 is the latest score for you in that match there. They are the latest scores. Isaac Success leading the line for Udinese this afternoon in that game. And, of course, our featured match in Serie A kicking off at 6 p.m. this evening here on Football Live, Milan against Lecce. Football Live then, let's head back around the grounds now for an update on the two Premier League matches that we are covering this afternoon for you. Let's head first of all to the Vitality Stadium. Bournemouth against West Ham. Are Bournemouth making any inroads to trying to get back into this game? Ash Standiford.
Yeah, still Bournemouth 0, West Ham 2, but Bournemouth are starting to get the ball a little bit more in the central of the midfield and starting to dominate a little bit more possession. Some great little bit of build-up play from Bournemouth actually on the left-hand side from Tavernier and popping it inside to Jefferson Lerman. He struck the ball from about 25 yards out, right into the top corner. But to be honest with you, Fabianski saw it all the way and just parried it out to the left, and it went out for a corner in the end. So it was a really good strike from Lerma after a really bad challenge that he did just on one of, I think it was Aaron Cresswell. Lerma really lunged in, did really well to escape a booking. But shortly after that, had a great strike from like some 25 yards out. Really good effort. And Bournemouth are slowly getting themselves into this game. And Gary O'Neill will be a bit more encouraged. But they really need to get a goal, hopefully, before half-time if they see getting anything out of this game. But as it stands, it's still Bournemouth 0, West Ham 2.
And just a word on Gary O'Neill. Ash, one pundit in the week arguing the case that he should be in contention for manager of the season. Agree with that or not, but he has done an incredible job since taking over from Scott Parker earlier in the season.
Well, it's been a tale of three different situations for him. He started off really well when he got the caretaker's job originally at the beginning when he got it off Scott Parker. And he ended up started really well. And then he had a really poor run of form, didn't win a game in 10, and got himself into a position where they were actually looking at other managers. But over the past, I'd say he had a really good April with wins against beating Spurs last week, Fulham and Leicester, getting 9 points out of 12. So Gary O'Neill's been fantastic. Manager of the year, difficult one, but definitely up there with a name and puts his name in the hat anyway. But yeah, still really good effort from Gary O'Neill, and they'll be looking to get at least 3 or 4 points between now and the end of the season to guarantee them safety for the Premier League next season.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few contenders for manager of the season. Roberto De Zerbi possibly being one of them as well. Thomas Frank, who knows? There's certainly a few contenders there. That's Ash Sandiford reporting on Bournemouth against West Ham, where it remains Bournemouth 0, West Ham 2. Let's just check back in now with Jack Hesson, who's watching that incredible match between Newcastle and Tottenham unfold. Jack.
Well, luckily for Tottenham, and I think for myself as well, things have calmed down a bit and allowed everybody just to catch our breaths. And after that frantic opening 20 minutes, 5 goals, just unbelievable. And since then, the game has really settled down. Newcastle have taken it perhaps down a notch, but they're still putting great pressure on Tottenham. Every time Tottenham get a spell of possession, there's always a Newcastle United player there to meet them, and it's forcing them into mistakes, which is how the goals have been happening. Tottenham, as I said, they just look like they're all set and ready to get back down the road, and they just want this over and done with. Half an hour played, 32 minutes played. Newcastle United 5, Tottenham Hotspur 0.
They've just kicked off in our featured match in the German Bundesliga, Freiburg against Schalke, and also in our featured match in the Women's Champions League semi-final, first leg, Wolfsburg against Arsenal. We'll be crossing over to those two grounds very, very shortly for updates there here on Football Live. Just reviewing yesterday, though, yesterday's action, the treble still very much on, of course, for Manchester City as a hat-trick from Riyad Mahrez saw the Sky Blues book their place in the FA Cup final with a comfortable 3-0 win against Sheffield United at Wembley yesterday. And for Blades boss Paul Heckingbottom, it proved to be a reality check.
What did I see? I saw a team going right to the end, as we'd expect, as we want to be. But yeah, I just can't get away from we gave City the first 2 goals. That's a frustration. But there's big lessons from that game. If we get the points we want on Wednesday night and get where we want to be, that's the benchmark. And we need to understand. And I said to everyone in there, myself included, to a man, we need to be better. So.
I think Sheffield United manager Paul Heckingbottom, of course, they might have gone out in the semi-finals of the FA Cup, but at the moment they are heading back towards the Premier League. Plenty of high-octane entertainment in the Premier League yesterday. Of course, a 5-goal thriller played out at Anfield as Mo Salah scored the winner for Liverpool to see off Nottingham Forest in their 3-2 victory. Jurgen Klopp's side still with a slim outside chance of a top 4 finish. As for Forest, they remain in the bottom 3, having now picked up just 3 points from their last 11 Premier League matches. It's an absolutely dreadful run for the Midlands-based club. Steve Cooper's side look set for a quick return to the Championship. Here is the Forest manager highlighting his disappointment at seeing his team concede all 3 goals from set pieces.
Well, the result and the stats, if you like, of conceding 3 again sort of add to that negative run that we're on. So that's that. If you look at the game in isolation, I guess the huge frustration for us is that we've conceded 3 goals from set pieces, and once the set pieces were given away, really unavoidable. So that's the real sort of frustration.
Meanwhile, Leicester City bounced out of the relegation zone. Kelechi Iheanacho fired them ahead from the penalty spot, and Timothy Castagna's goal 15 minutes from time saw the Foxes dispatch Wolves 2-1 at the King Power Stadium yesterday, leaving newly appointed Leicester City manager Dean Smith a very happy man.
Yeah, really pleased. We wanted an aggressive start. I thought we got that. Unfortunately, another mistake cost us for the goal. And Wolves punished us, and then I thought it was tough for 20 minutes. I thought we got a little bit overrun in midfield. Their movements and their timing was a little bit better than ours. But then we play a ball into the space, and Jamie Vardy does what he does best when the ball's in there. Beats the goalkeeper to it, wins the penalty, and we can go in at half time all square. I thought they were less of a threat in the second half, and we defended our box really well. So really pleasing, because that will give everybody a big lift, given the current run of form we was on.
Elsewhere yesterday, Leeds United succumbed to a 3rd consecutive defeat, losing at Fulham to leave Javi Gracia's side still perilously close to the drop zone. Here is the Leeds head coach on yet another disappointing defeat for his team.
Yeah, as you say, it was not enough. I think we started the game really focused. The game was equal, well competed for both teams. But after in the second, we conceded the first goal, and after always is tough for us to manage the games. After three games in a row, losing is not easy now. The moments, the times we are living.
That's Leeds United head coach Javi Gracia. And of course, Leicester's win saw Everton move into the bottom 3 after their goalless draw at Crystal Palace. There's been an early goal at that in our featured match in the German Bundesliga, Freiburg against Schalke.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
And I can tell you that Freiburg have taken the lead in that game. Michael Gregorisch has opened the scoring there for Freiburg, who lead Schalke by a 1-0. We'll be crossing over to our reporter, Matteo Liguri, for details of that goal very, very shortly here on Football Live on Brilla FM. But it is an early goal there for Freiburg in that game. Of course, we have action in the Dutch Eredivisie as well coming up in about 7 minutes' time or so. Feyenoord against Utrecht meet each other at the Stadion Feyenoord in Rotterdam. Jordan Okoli will be watching that game for us here on Football Live. Before we get to Jordan, let's get details of that goal for Freiburg against Schalke. Matteo Liguri.
Yeah, wonderfully scored by Michael Gregory here. I don't know if he had a few knocks on the ball against Schalke, but this time he managed to find the back of the net thanks to a wonderful shot. But the most important thing in this goal was his first touch, an absolute beauty of a ball control, which allowed him to shoot powerfully and follow the Schalke 04 goalkeeper would have done nothing to save it. Honestly, if you would have told a Bundesliga fan that 10 years ago, Schalke were going to be the teams fighting for the relegation, and Freiburg, by winning this game, might actually get closer and closer to the first ever Champions League qualification spots, well, you'd have a very confused man. But here's the thing, what matters is now, and we have to say that Freiburg have deserved that goal. They shot 4 times already, and it's not even been 10 minutes. So Freiburg deserved the lead 1-0.
And just looking at the table as it stands at the moment, Matteo, it was a great start for Freiburg, and it would only just help them consolidate their place, of course, in the top 4 in that Champions League qualification.
Yeah, there have been a meteoric rise in these years, and we can also see that their performance in the Europa League has only been stopped by Juventus. So that really tells a story about a team which has been wonderfully run by the board, and which, in my opinion, deserves such a qualification because of their run, because of their development, and because of their history as well. And let's not forget, Freiburg is one of the most historic teams in Europe and in Germany, one of the most respected ones. So it would be great to see some new faces, some new fans in the Champions League, and I think Freiburg thoroughly deserve it. Let's not forget that the Bundesliga has been one of the craziest championships in all of Europe and all over the globe, honestly. So everything can still happen. Yesterday, Bayern Munich lost their top spot to Borussia Dortmund, so it's going to be really interesting. And let me tell you something, that Ritsu Doan right there, playing on the wing for Freiburg, it's a joy to the eye to watch, and the Japanese man might earn himself a move to some more prestigious scenarios, or we might see him playing in the Champions League. I'm excited either way.
That's Freiburg against Schalke. Freiburg leading by a 1-0 in that game. Just a reminder that our featured match in the German Bundesliga later on this afternoon in the 6:30 kickoff, Bayer Leverkusen against Leipzig. As I say, that kicks off at 5:30 p.m. I should say, here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Well, I'm delighted to say that Ayo Alabi from NairaBet joins us on the line now here on Football Live. A very good afternoon to you, Ayo.
Good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you very much. It's absolutely brilliant as ever to talk to you here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Plenty of action, of course, took place yesterday. And, well, the first of the FA Cup semi-finals, of course, was played out yesterday as Man City cruised through to that final with Riyad Mahrez scoring a hat-trick, securing a 3-0 win over Sheffield United. I think we pretty much all expected that would be the outcome in that game. The second Wembley FA Cup semi-final taking place later this evening in a 5:30 p.m. kickoff, where, of course, it is Brighton against Manchester United. And Ayo, I guess, given the Seagulls' incredible season and United's shortcomings in recent weeks, you could expect this to be a pretty close contest. So how's that reflected in the betting?
It's almost a shock to say Brighton are actually the favourites heading into this game. You would never have predicted that 4 weeks ago, that Brighton would be 2.25 and United would be longer at 2.88, while a draw is at 3.80. As you mentioned earlier, Brighton have had an incredible season. They've been absolutely majestic. They went to Stamford Bridge and won recently, though it doesn't take a lot to win at Stamford Bridge these days. But Brighton still went there and won. They went to Spurs. They absolutely battered Spurs. If not for controversial VAR decisions, they should have won that game. They lost by 2-1. But they're having an incredible season. Their football is out of this world. United, on the other hand, have kind of stalled recently. The United peaked when they beat Barcelona 2-1 and qualified for the round of 16 a few weeks back. But all of a sudden, there have been a few issues. There's a lot of suspension. There's suspension today with Maguire. There is a lot of injuries. Martinez is out. Varane is out. Luke Shaw just came back the other day. Rashford just came back the other day. How fit are they? So all these things are reflected in the prices, which, as I said, with Brighton being the favourites. One thing, though, every time United have had a poor result or a shocker this season, they've bounced back straight away. And that's the only thing you can give to Erik ten Hag and his boys to say, United, despite not being the favourites for this game, despite the injuries, despite the suspension to Maguire, the standing player who is suspended himself, so it's most likely going to be a Luke Shaw and what's his name, Lindelof centre-back pairing. It's a difficult one. I'm getting ready to go to Wembley myself. So once this show is over, I'm heading to Wembley. And United, I'm still going to stay with United to win the game, despite the fact that the bookies are against them this time around.
That's really interesting. So despite the fact that Brighton are favourites, you still fancy Manchester United to make it a second cup final appearance this season?
Absolutely. I fancy United to make it to the final because Brighton, they're having a fantastic season, as we both said. But the problem is, do they have the experience? I can't remember Brighton playing at Wembley anytime recently. United's experience, United's know-how, and United's being more streetwise should be able to just give them the edge today. It will be very, very close. United will be very, very difficult to beat. And I can see United nicking this 1-0 or 2-1. 1-0 will be United to win 1-0 is 12.00 or 2-1 at 10.00 with Naira bets.
They're the latest odds there for you on that game. We'll be back with you very shortly, AO, but I can tell you that there's been another goal at the Vitality Stadium. And West Ham at the moment,
powered by NairaBet,
are cruising to victory because it's now Bournemouth 0, West Ham 3. We're going to head back now to Ayo Alabi from NairaBet as we look ahead to some of the excellent betting opportunities that we have for you today. We're going to focus now on the match taking place in Italian Serie A this afternoon, or this evening, I should say. It's our featured match, in fact. Milan against Lecce. Really looking forward to this one, AO. And Milan, of course, really should be full of confidence going into this game, through to the last four of the Champions League. It's a no-brainer, this game, surely. Where's the value?
Well, the problem is with this game, you never know with Milan what you're going to get. So one moment, you don't know whether Milan are Arthur or Martha, because Jekyll and Hyde, one moment they're brilliant, like when they won 4-0 away to Napoli, the league leaders, a few weeks back. And of course, beating them 1-0 twice in the quarterfinal of the Champions League. But then again, you wonder, a team with Rafael Leao, who performed so brilliantly in that second leg, you now think, okay, why are they sixth in the table? Why are they behind Roma, behind Juventus, behind everyone? Clearly, there is a consistency issue with Milan. So I'm not going to back Milan at 1.57. That is a shocker of a price. I'm not going to go with Milan at 1.57. A draw is 4.00, while Lecce at 7.00. What I would tend to go for in this game, recently, it may pay to side with under 2.5 goals in this game, because Milan are likely to rotate their squad after their midweek Champions League game. And Lecce are solid at the back. They have the best defensive record in the bottom half of the league. And Milan's last four Serie A home games all stayed under 2.5 goals. I'm going to go with under 2.5 goals for this game between Milan and Lecce. Let me give you the price for under 2.5 goals, and that is under 2.5 goals is 1.67. Over 2.5 goals is 2.25. If you fancy one of the crazy prices, like one of those that put £1 or 100 naira on a 500 to 1, Lecce to beat Milan 4-2 at 250 to 1, AC Milan to beat Lecce by 4 goals to 2 as well is 81.00. If you fancy that, that could be your bet. But I'm going to go with under 2.5 goals in this game at 1.67. That'll be my bet of the game. Should be an interesting game.
It certainly should be. Many thanks there to Ayo Alabi. Some excellent betting opportunities there for you to take advantage of. And Ayo, all being well, will be joining us next weekend once again for further betting opportunities here. And yeah, good luck there. Excellent for some further betting opportunities next weekend here with, of course, Naira Bet. Thanks again to Ayo. You are listening to Football Live here on Brilla FM. Goal news from the Women's Champions League semi-final. And it's not good news.
Powered by Naira Bet.
For the Gunners, I'm afraid, because Wolfsburg have taken the lead in that game. It is now Wolfsburg 1, Arsenal 0 in that Women's Champions League first leg semi-final tie. Pat Noiret will be giving us details of that goal very, very shortly. No further goals to tell you about in the match at St James's Park. After that explosive start, it remains Newcastle 5, Tottenham 0. Let's head back to the Vitality Stadium for news of that third goal for David Moyes' side. Bournemouth against West Ham is Ash Sandiford.
Yeah, another huge goal for West Ham, and it's Bournemouth 0, West Ham 3, and it's another corner from West Ham, another set piece. They're super strong on set pieces, West Ham United, and it's another out-swinging corner from Aaron Cresswell, and Thomas Suchet tried to direct it towards goal, and he's ended up flicking it all towards the back post, and Declan Rice is trunching inside, and he smashed it as hard as he could. It's taken a small little deflection, but there was no chance of any goalkeeper stopping that, and it's gone in, and Declan Rice is on a bit of a goal-scoring streak, scoring 2 in 2, including in that Europa Conference League as well. It's another great goal from West Ham, and another 3 points it looks like here at the Vitality Stadium. It's Bournemouth 0, West Ham United 3.
And what a crucial 3 points that will be for West Ham, unless Bournemouth can find any way back into that game. And Bournemouth, of course, it will bring them a little bit closer to the bottom three again after their really decent run in the last few matches. So that's the half-time score there from the Vitality Stadium. Half-time whistle has also blown at St James's Park. Newcastle United against Tottenham. Jack Hesson.
Yeah, half-time, and it's not the whistle that Tottenham Hotspur will have wanted to hear. They want to hear that full-time whistle because it's Newcastle United 5, Tottenham Hotspur 0, and a half that's been a tale of triumph for Newcastle United in the hunt for the top four, and tragedy for Tottenham, as it seems like it's potentially going to slip away from them perhaps. And it all started so well for them inside that opening 21 minutes of play. Jacob Murphy got on the end of a rebound. Lloris saved it off of Joe Linton, and he was there for the rebound to make it 1-0. Just 4 minutes later, Fabian Schär's excellent long pass towards Joe Linton split the lethargic Tottenham defence to give Joe Linton a chance on goal, and he took it for 2-0. Then, just a few minutes later, on 9 minutes, Jacob Murphy made it 3-0 with a 30 or 25-yard pile driver that just left Lloris absolutely rooted to the spot. We then got a 10-minute spell of no goals. On the 19th minute, Alexander Isak came to the party. An excellent ball from a counter-attack by Joe Willock. Again, splits the Tottenham defence, gives Isak a chance on goal, and he scores. And then on 21 minutes, Alexander Isak dispatched it for 5. Tottenham, as I say, they just look like they want up the road. Some aggressive tackling as well. It looks like it potentially could boil over into the second half. They do not seem happy out there, Tottenham Hotspur, and you cannot blame them. Half-time at St James's Park. It's Newcastle United 5, Tottenham Hotspur 0.
You're listening to Football Live here on Brilla FM. Coming up right now, we head back to the team in Nigeria. That's Tony and the gang for all of your social media comments on all the action that's taken place this weekend. You are listening to Football Live on Brila FM, powered by NairaBet, with Chris Baldwin. Yeah, some fascinating comments there whilst we were with colleagues in Nigeria, mainly around, not surprisingly, the latest news from the St James's Park, of course, Newcastle against Tottenham, with Newcastle 5-0 up at half-time. No wonder Conte left them, said one caller. Unbelievable, said others. Spurs should not play in the Premier League again, according to somebody. Tottenham are a disgrace to clubs in London. But someone else being a little bit more positive, it will end up 5-7. Don't think that's going to happen somehow. So Newcastle 5, Tottenham 0 at halftime. Bournemouth 0, West Ham 3 is the other halftime score in the other Premier League match currently in progress here on Football Live on Brila FM. Of course, we're building up to the second FA Cup semi-final, kicking off at 5:30 p.m. Brighton against Manchester United. Build-up and team news coming up very, very shortly, or a little bit later on, I should say. We're still, a little way from kick-off here, and I'm sure that the crowds are making their way up Wembley way as we speak. Further action, of course, in the Scottish Premiership later on as well in a 5:30 kick-off as Rangers travel to Aberdeen. We'll be across that game for you here on Football Live on Brila FM. Elsewhere in the Dutch Eredivisie, I can tell you that PSV are 2-0 up at home to Ajax. That match has been interrupted, though. But PSV are leading by 2-0. It's a top of the table clash, of course, with second place playing third place going into that game. Feyenoord against Utrecht. That match is also about to get underway in about 45 minutes, in fact, away from kickoff there. That's our featured match in the Dutch Eredivisie this afternoon. Feyenoord, of course, going into that game 8 points clear at the top of the table. But Utrecht have certainly got a fairly good record against their opponents. We'll be building up to that game a little bit later on with team news as well. Elsewhere around Europe, some other latest scores to give you in our featured match in the Bundesliga. Freiburg still leading Schalke by 1-0 with half an hour played in that game. In Italian Serie A, result from earlier on today, Empoli 0, Inter 3. Elsewhere at half-time, it's Monza 2, Fiorentina 2, and Udinese are 3-0 up at home to Cremonese in that match. They are half-time scores. Coming up later on, Milan against Lecce, of course, kicking off at 6 p.m. That's our featured game in Serie A. Elsewhere around Europe, in La Liga, a result from earlier on today, it finished Elche 0, Valencia 2 in that game. And meanwhile, league leaders Barcelona are at home to third place Atletico Madrid. That is the game of the weekend. Of that, there's no doubt. Real Madrid, of course, won 2-0 last night at home to Celta Vigo, just to close the gap to 8 points on Barcelona at the top of the table. But Barca also, of course, have that game in hand against Atletico Madrid. Athletic Madrid this afternoon. Let's see if they can extend their lead. That kicks off in around about 15 minutes' time or so. Back to Italian Serie A. As I said, Udinese 3-0 up at home to Cremonese. I told you earlier on that Isaac Success was leading the line there for Udinese this afternoon. He's got on the score sheet as well. Isaac Success scoring in the 36th minute, the former Watford striker, of course, and Udinese now leading by 3-0 in that game. A result from earlier on today in the Championship, where, of course, we're coming to the business end there. Burnley, of course, already promoted to the Premier League, as we know. A result from earlier on today, it finished West Brom 1, Sunderland 2. That's a huge result for Sunderland. It bounces them into 6th place in the playoff positions there, following that win at West Brom, who are also on the fringes of the playoffs as well. But a terrific result there for Sunderland this afternoon, winning at West Brom by 2-1. Right, I think you're up to date with all of the latest scores from around Europe and domestically as well. We are, of course, covering the Women's Champions League semi-final first leg this afternoon as well. There's been a second goal in that game. Wolfsburg against Arsenal. Let's hear all about it now from our reporter, Pat Moritz.
Yeah, we've 31 gone. It's Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 0. The first goal came from a long ball from midfield into Ventetio. Came off from the flanks to come inside, a little pass to Payo, and she put it right away, bottom left-hand corner. The second one was a basically disaster from Arsenal, trying to play out the back. They got caught, and Ventetio who was in the middle of the park. She just slotted it. It was a giveaway. With 32 gone, it's Arsenal. It's Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 0. I think it's damage limitation for the time being because I can see Wolfsburg getting out of the goal. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, Chris. So it's 32 gone, Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 0.
So Wolfsburg firmly in control of that game at the moment. Arsenal women looking for their first European semi-final since 2013. They knocked out German opposition, of course, didn't they, in the last round, beating Bayern Munich. But their recent away record in the Champions League doesn't read too well, with 2 draws and 4 defeats in their last 6. And it's a long way back at the moment. And according to Pat Noiret, anyway, it's damage limitation for the Gunners, trailing by 2-0. Our feature match in the Dutch Eredivisie this afternoon, Feyenoord against Utrecht. That kicks off in about 40 minutes time or so. And joining us now, Jordan Okoli with all the latest team news ahead of that game. Jordan.
Good afternoon, listeners. I'm looking forward to this fixture between Feyenoord and Utrecht. This could play a big part in who wins the Eredivisie League title. If results go Feyenoord's way and they win the 3 points today, they could have an 11-point gap on Ajax, and that could be significant in the title race. Feyenoord have not won the league in the last 6 years, so they'll be hoping to get a great result today. I'll start with Feyenoord team news. They were unfortunately knocked out of the Europa League, and they have made a few changes to that side that was knocked out by Roma. Jabankash is out of the lineup, and in comes Paxiao. Hartmann and Travagna are out for Lopez and Pedersen. Utrecht, who have won their last 2 games in a row, of course, no surprise, they have made no changes to their starting lineup. They'll be hoping to keep up winning ways, but all eyes will be on Feyenoord as they hope to have an 11-point gap in the Dutch league today. So kicking off in around 40 minutes between Feyenoord and Utrecht.
That's our featured match in the Dutch Eredivisie this afternoon. Feyenoord at the top of the table against Utrecht there. And, of course, there is another big game taking place in that division at the moment, although play has been interrupted. PSV currently leading Ajax by 2-0 in that match, but it's been interrupted due to some disturbances in the ground. Not good to hear. PSV leading by 2-0 in that game. As soon as they restart there, we'll let you know here on Football Live on Brilla FM. The second halves are just about getting underway in our 2 featured Premier League matches. Bournemouth against West Ham, Newcastle against Tottenham. We'll be back with our reporters very, very shortly for news of the early exchanges in the second half on each of those games here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Still plenty to come, of course, this afternoon with the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley as well. The second one of the weekend, Brighton against Manchester United. Team news and build-up coming up a little bit later on here on Football Live. Also coming up later on today, action from Italian Serie A as well as Milan host Lecce. Scottish Premiership action too. Aberdeen against Rangers. We'll be dipping into the German Bundesliga. Bayer Leverkusen against Leipzig as well. Goal news to tell you about in the German Bundesliga. Second goal in our featured match between Freiburg.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
And Schalke and Freiburg are now leading by 2-0. Let's get news and details of that second goal for the home side from Matteo Liguri.
Yeah, and
before we get there, goal news coming in from St James's Park.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
Great start to the second half for Tottenham. They've pulled one back. Can they? Who knows? It's now Newcastle 5, Tottenham 1 in the Premier League there. Just see if we can tell you news of the goal scorer for Tottenham. In fact, it's, Have a guess. Harry Kane has scored. He's on the score sheet again. What's 24 now for the season? I think that is. In fact, let's get details of that Spurs comeback goal. Here's Jack Hesson.
Yeah, come back on, perhaps, but at least it's a consolation goal for Tottenham Hotspur, and it comes from the first nice bit of intricate play that they had on the left-hand side. The ball falls to Kane. He's got a lot of work to do. Newcastle seem a bit slack defensively in that instance. Kane manages to brush past Dan Burn and dispatch a tightly angled finish, as he always does. A great finish there from Harry Kane. Comeback, perhaps, but at the moment, it's a positive sign for Newcastle United, who I can tell you as well, Tottenham Hotspur even, who I can tell you as well, actually subbed off Hugo Lloris. They're saying it's because of an injury. We'll find out about that after the game, I'm sure. But Fraser Forster is now in goals for them as well.
Thanks very much to Jack Hesson there. So Newcastle 5, Tottenham 1 now. The latest score from St James's Park. Let's head back to Matteo Liguri for details of that second goal for Freiburg against Schalke. Matteo.
Yeah, and it's once again Michael Gregoritsch who manages to score from quite a tricky position, but Freiburg knocking on the goal once again, and for the whole entirety of the first half, and they deservedly got the second goal. It was all from a corner kick, because it was actually taken very well by Gregoritsch himself, and Schalke's defence didn't manage to clear the ball as they should have had, but in the end, Reinhardt managed to find Gregoritsch again inside the penalty area, and the striker from that position found the right way to strike it past the goalkeeper and make it 2-0. It's looking very dark for Schalke 04, whereas Freiburg fans are celebrating as they momentarily leapfrogged Leipzig into third position. While Union Berlin and the Leipzig team are yet to play, but so far Freiburg fans are dreaming because they lead 2-0 against Schalke.
Yeah, Freiburg comfortably in control in that game as it stands at the moment. It puts them into third place in the Bundesliga on 53 points as they compete for that top 4 slot this season. And at the moment, heading towards all 3 points in that game. Let's head back to the Vitality Stadium for an update. Bournemouth against West Ham. Ash Sandiford.
Yeah, 52 minutes in and it's Bournemouth 0, West Ham United 3. And yeah, it's a pretty steady start to this second half, to be honest with you, Chris. And yeah, nothing's really much happening. Kiefer Moore's come on at half time. He's replaced who did he replace? He's replaced Joe Rothwell. So Joe Rothwell's come off and Kiefer Moore's come on. And since Kiefer Moore's come on, he's managed to grab himself a header from a corner and then pull someone back and got himself booked. So apart from that, nothing really has happened too interesting here at the Vitality. But Bournemouth really need to get an early goal to get themselves within the chance to potentially get a draw and get the comeback. But yeah, Kiefer Moore's on. Still as it stands, Bournemouth 0, West Ham United 3, 52 minutes in.
And that's just briefly, I mean, as we know, it's been a frustrating season for West Ham supporters this season when you think where they were at this time last year, but they're starting to show some character, aren't they? I mean, last weekend they came back from 2 goals down to rescue a point against Arsenal, and just looking at their run in recent matches, David Moyes has really steadied the ship a little bit, and they, on the face of it anyway, with that 3-0 lead at Bournemouth now, looks as though they'll be safe this season.
Yeah, the big Scotsman, David Moyes, he certainly has. He's really steady. He has. He's done exactly what he said. He steadied the ship. He's got players getting back to basics, and that's what the most important thing. They've only lost 1 in all competitions in 9 games, and he's getting himself into position now where he can start looking at the higher end of the table. I'd say trying to get himself mid-table, because this will take him on to 34 points, and I believe 38 points will be more than enough to keep them in the division. It's really important today that they're going to get. I think they're going to get the win, but it's really important today that they try and get the win, because their fixtures next, they've got some real tough ones. They've got Liverpool, they've got Palace, they're away at Palace, and then they're away to Manchester City, and then home to Manchester United. So they've got 4 games, realistically, on paper, they'll be lucky to get a point out of them. So today is a huge day to get themselves 3 points. So David Moyes will be super happy with the results so far and hoping they can hang on to it.
And of course, their adventure in the Europa Conference continues as well after they beat Ghent on Thursday to progress through to the semi-finals. So they could not only stay up this season, but at the end of the campaign, they could even end up with a European trophy.
Well, I think the West Ham fans will be absolutely delighted with that. 3-4 weeks ago, they were worried about going out of the Europa Conference League and going down, and they were trying to decide which one they wanted to kind of hang on to. Is it Premier League status? Is it winning a trophy? So I think now they'll be looking at the positive side of things and potentially winning that Europa Conference League. They're favourites to win that Europa Conference League trophy. And I think now that after these last probably 2 or 3 performances, especially that comeback away at home to Arsenal, that was the one I think was the turning point to propel them for this result that they've got today. So I think they're in with a great chance of getting themselves in maybe 13th, 14th place onwards and winning that Europa Conference League. So I think David Moyes will be delighted with the last couple of weeks.
I think he will. They certainly turned a corner of that. There's no doubt. Many thanks, Ash, covering Bournemouth against West Ham. West Ham still comfortably in control of that game where they lead by 3-0. Of course, they made a great start to that game with a very early goal in the 5th minute from Mikel Antonio, and then Lucas Paquetá and Declan Rice adding to that in the first half as well. Just to recap the latest score from the St James's Park, Newcastle 5-1 up at home to Tottenham. Let's get an update on that game now from our reporter Jack Hesson. Jack.
Yeah, Tottenham have shown some encouraging signs of getting a bit back into this game and a bit more competitive, but it hasn't stopped Newcastle from getting a couple of great chances to make it 6. The first one from a nice little bit of play falls to Longstaff, bearing down on goal. He takes a shot, deflects off Romero and balloons all the way towards the back post. Isaac's sitting there and nearly scores it in the resulting corner as well. It's Dan Burn. Dan Burn heads it towards goal, and Longstaff is the one on the line who stops it from going in. So great chances for Newcastle there, but still searching for that 6th goal. 55 minutes played, Newcastle 5, Tottenham 1.
Goal news to tell you about in the Women's Champions League semi-final first leg.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
And I can tell you that Arsenal have now reduced the deficit in that game. So still very much game on. It's Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 1 in that Women's Champions League semi-final. We'll be across over to Pat Noiret for details of that goal very, very shortly here on Football Live on Brilla FM. I can tell you that the goal scorer for Arsenal is Rafael Souza, who's managed to pull one back there. So it's now Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 1 in that semi-final tie. Big goal there for the Gunners. Still plenty of action to come here on Football Live on Brilla FM between now and 7 p.m. Of course, as we build up to that FA Cup semi-final, which kicks off in just over an hour's time, about an hour and 15 minutes or so. Brighton taking on Manchester United at Wembley. Brighton have certainly got the better of United in recent games. Of course, on the opening day of the season, they went to Old Trafford and won by 2-1. Pascal Gross with both goals on that occasion. And then last season at the Amex, they disposed of them quite comfortably by 4-0. Really looking forward to this. Of course, Manchester United, 12-time FA Cup winners as well. Their last success was in 2016 when they beat Crystal Palace, if you'll remember, in the final. And going back even further than that, 40 years ago, in fact, now, the 1983 FA Cup final was fought out between these two sides. And it went to a replay after a 2-2 draw in the first game. Gordon Smith having an excellent opportunity to win that for Brighton in extra time, forcing a save from Gary Bailey, I seem to remember. And then United comfortably winning that replay by 4-0 when they won it 40 years ago. Can Brighton progress through to the final this season? What a season they have had. Manchester City, of course, await the winners, or will Manchester United make it an all-Mancunian affair? We shall have to wait and see. But that is Brighton against Manchester United, the second of the weekend's FA Cup semi-finals taking place this afternoon, and we'll be across that game for you here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Let's get news. Let's get to a half-time report. Freiburg against Schalke. They've reached the interval in that game as we rejoin Matteo Ligori.
Yeah, it's 2-0 at the end of the first half here in Germany, and I have to say, I wasn't expecting that bad of a Schalke performance, but Freiburg have deserved their 2-0 lead. It was Gregoritsch to put them ahead in the score sheet in the 7 minutes with a wonderful goal, with following a great first touch, and then himself again at the 35th minute with a wonderful goal from a difficult position, and he managed nonetheless to score. I have to say that Schalke haven't really been up to anything. They've only gotten 2 shots, and they were very wide of the goal, and they didn't even trouble Flecken, who just stared at them. For example, there was an attempt from, I believe it was number 8, Danny Latzer, but it was very poor. In fact, the expected goals stats for Schalke 04, it's 0.04, which means they created a lot less than they should have had if they want to survive this relegation battle. On the other end, Freiburg are flying. They shot 13 times in this game. 6 times they managed to find a goal, and Schorlov saved Schalke 04 on a few occasions. They also needed the post, because Vincenzo Grifo is the post, because in fact the Italian managed to find some space and to launch a wonderful shot, which ended up not being lethal enough to put him away for him. Honestly, Freiburg have been the better team, and I don't see Schalke coming back, but I do see a typical Bundesliga goleada. So tune in for the second half. Freiburg 2, Schalke 0.
So Freiburg 2 goals to the good there, and doing their European aspirations absolutely no harm whatsoever. In the Dutch Eredivisie, I can tell you that PSV against Ajax play has resumed there after some crowd disturbances in that game. PSV still leading by 2-0 there. Feyenoord against Utrecht, of course, that's our featured match kicking off in about 25 minutes time or so here on Football Live. Just looking at the top of the table in the Dutch Eredivisie. As it stands at the moment, PSV with that 2-0 lead at home to Ajax. If they can secure all 3 points this afternoon, they'll close the gap, albeit momentarily, to 5 points to Feyenoord at the top of the table. As I said, Feyenoord against Utrecht kicks off at 4:45 this afternoon. Action, of course, in the Women's Champions League semi-final. Let's get news of that goal for Arsenal at Wolfsburg, at the Wolfsburg Arena. Here's Pat Noiret.
Yeah, and it's our town here, of course, Chris, probably with Wolfsburg winning 2-1. But that goal which they got back, it was basically a corner from the right-hand side. And it was Rafael Souza who rose and scored the goal, made it 2-1 on the 45th minute. But the first time, I would say to you, it was a cagey affair. Arsenal holding the ball quite well, and Wolfsburg not really doing anything until one long ball which found Jossitir from the left-hand side. She came inside and found Payo in the middle of the park and in the box and found the goal. The second goal was a mistake, trying to play out the back. They got caught, and Jossitir again found herself in the middle, getting that ball and made it 2-0. And then, of course, they came back with that corner on the 45th minute. Rafael Souza with that goal. That changes the game complete now. The complex of the game, they got one away goal. What do? What I would say, Chris, is that what Arsenal are doing in possession, apart from that one blip they had at the back, they're pretty good from defence to midfield. It's that final ball from midfield to the final third they're finding difficult, as there's not much pace in the Wolfsburg defence, but up front they're very quick. So half-time is Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 1. All to play for in the second half.
Absolutely, a match that's very nicely poised at the moment. You're listening to Football Live here. Just to recap the latest scores in the Premier League into the 65th minute at the Vitality Stadium. It remains Bournemouth 0, West Ham 3, and into the 64th minute at St James's Park, Newcastle at the moment. A goal drought really since for Newcastle, isn't it? Since after the first 20 minutes, but they are still leading Tottenham by 5-1 there at St James's Park. This is Football Live.
4 hours of football every Saturday and Sunday on Brilla FM with Football Live.
But it always starts with us.
All the key action from around Europe's top leagues.
Wow. Just wow.
Will the Serie A top scorer strike again? After his stoppage time consolation goal against Milan in the Champions League semi-final, Victor Osimhen is back playing in Italy later on this afternoon when Napoli take on Juventus in Turin. The Nigerian superstar has 21 goals in the league so far, and for every goal he scores in this match, our partners at NairaBet will give you a 500 Naira free bet. So if he scores a hat-trick, you will have 1,500 Naira to play with. Get involved and visit www.nairabet.com/bonus for more info. Minimum acca stake required is 500 Naira. 18 plus only. Please gamble responsibly.
Liverpool take on Tottenham Hotspur, and Fulham up against Manchester City in the Premier League next Sunday. Exclusive coverage on Football Live. You are listening to Football Live on Brila FM, powered by NairaBet. Have your say on today's action and interact with Brila FM on Twitter at Brila FM 889, on Facebook at 889 Brila FM, and on Instagram, Brila FM 889.
It's drama you will not want to miss.
Well, against all the odds, Bournemouth are taking the lead and not a single shot on target up to this point.
Yeah, it was a James Ward-Prowse classic. He just kills it beautifully.
Well, it's been absolute chaos.
Yes, Josh. Football's a cruel game. You can have all the possession you want, but if you don't put the ball at the back of the net.
It was again Kate and Son, like the good old days.
But this show never disappoints.
Yes, well, it's Brentford 0, Crystal Palace 1 here, and it's Eberechi who's got the goal.
Oh my word, Josh. I cannot believe how Phil Foden has not made this 2-0.
Yes, Barry, it's a second goal for Borussia Dortmund, and the Dice Watch go on are running away with it now.
Today's show is powered by Hollandia and Chivita. You're listening to Football Live here on Brilla FM. We'll be back around the grounds very, very shortly here. Still plenty of action to come between now and 7 o'clock. There's also, just to remind you, plenty of action, of course, taking place in the Nigerian Premier League this afternoon as well. Plenty of games kicking off, getting underway in about 35 minutes' time or so. And we'll keep you up to date with all the latest scores from the matches taking place. 6 matches in all. There has been a 7th goal at St James's Park.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
And Newcastle United have done it. They have hit Tottenham for 6, because it is now Newcastle 6, Tottenham 1. And Callum Wilson has got in on the act as well and scored to make it 6-1 now to Eddie Howe's side. I think the 3 points are safely wrapped up, it's safe to say, and Newcastle more than consolidating 4th spot this afternoon. Jack Hesson.
Yeah, it's 6, and he's only been on the field for just a few minutes, but Callum Wilson has made such an impact in this game with that 6th goal of the game for Newcastle United. And it was the other substitution, Almiron, that also had an impact in that goal. The ball went to Trippier on the right-hand side. He faced up against Perisic. Ball's played into the middle. Almiron takes a touch and tries to go for the shot. It deflects towards Wilson, and Wilson is left with a tap-in for that 6th goal of the game. As I've been saying, Tottenham have looked a bit more encouraging in this half. Newcastle looked like they were taking the foot off the gas. They'd done the job that they needed to do in the opening 20 minutes. That might just be that, but clearly not the case. The substitutions have given them fresh legs and given them a 6th goal. 67 minutes played. Newcastle 6, Tottenham 1.
Jack, it's a dire afternoon for Tottenham. A slight silver lining for Harry Kane insofar that he's actually got on the score sheet. It's been a really strange season, hasn't it, for the Spurs striker, because he's netted 24 Premier League goals, I think, this campaign, despite those poor performances. Now, his contract takes him into the summer of 2024, and there's already plenty of speculation over his future. And with the thought now that Tottenham aren't going to make that top 4 spot this season, that will be absolutely crucial as part of his decision-making process, surely.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every season feels like a strange season for Harry Kane because he's always delivering with the goals, but in his 10 years at Tottenham Hotspur, what really has he had to show for it? No silverware in that time from at all. A player like that, a goal scorer like that, if he stays at Tottenham and he don't win anything and he ends up retiring, not having a bit of silverware to his name, that is just unbelievable to think of as a possibility. And I think for Kane as well, it really is just about actually winning silverware now. When that contract's up, he has a decision to make. Does he think that the direction Tottenham are going in will lead to any kind of success for him and for the club? Or does he think, like a bit potentially like maybe Robin van Persie at Arsenal going to Manchester United all those years ago, does he think, I'll make the move and start winning myself trophies? It's a big decision for him to make when his contract's up.
Newcastle 6, Tottenham 1 then, the latest score from St James's Park. Back to the Vitality Stadium we go, and West Ham at the moment sailing towards all 3 points in their match at Bournemouth. Ash Sandiford.
Yeah, currently as it stands, it's still Bournemouth 0, West Ham United 3, and it's cruise control really for West Ham, to be honest with you. A few substitutions on both sides. Gary O'Neill's taken off Adam Smith and put Jadon Anthony on, put on Dango Otara for Ryan Christie, and also he's taken off Lloyd Kelly and brought on Matthias Vina, who started in the last game. David Moyes, the big Scotsman, he's decided to rest a couple of players now because they're in cruise control here. So they've decided to take off, bring on Pablo Fornals for Said Benrahma, and also Danny Ings has got in some fresh legs, and Mikel Antonio has just strolled off the pitch. So a few substitutions either side, but currently as it stands, it's still Bournemouth 0, West Ham United 3.
Just a reminder, of course, the FA Cup semi-final coming up in exactly an hour's time. Brighton against Manchester United. Team news and build up to that game with Andrew Bonacore here on Football Live a little bit later on. Goal news, further goals news from the Vitality Stadium.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
And there will be plenty of happy hammers down on the south coast of England this afternoon because West Ham have surely wrapped up all the points now. They lead by 4-0. And the fourth goal from Pablo Fornals. So 4-0 then, West Ham lead at Bournemouth. And that will absolutely springboard them up the Premier League table. As it stands, it will move them up to 13th spot in the table, and importantly, give them 6 points, a 6-point gap between themselves and Everton, who are in 18th spot at the moment. So Bournemouth 0, West Ham 4 now, the latest score from the Vitality Stadium. Didn't really see that one coming this afternoon. Thought it would have been a lot closer contest than that, given Bournemouth's recent good form, of course, with those 4 wins in their last 6 prior to this match this afternoon. And they've had some good wins as well, of course, last weekend at Tottenham, the week before that at Leicester as well, also beaten Fulham and, of course, Liverpool in recent games as well. But at the moment, it's West Ham who are going to be clinching all 3 points there at the Vitality Stadium. Bournemouth 0, West Ham 4. It remains Newcastle 6, Tottenham 1 at St James's Park. Plenty of action still to come here on Football Live. Aberdeen against Rangers. That's our featured match in the Scottish Premiership. It kicks off in just under an hour's time. Let's just give you some final scores and the latest scores in the Dutch Eredivisie. A couple of results from earlier on today. Twente 3, Sparta Rotterdam 3. Go Ahead Eagles have beaten Sittard by 2-0. PSV are 3-0 up now at home to Ajax in that game. It's a second goal in that match as well for Luke de Jong. So they lead by 3-0. That was interrupted, of course, due to some crowd disturbance a little bit earlier on. But at the moment, PSV are going to be getting all 3 points in that game and closing the gap, albeit temporarily, to Feyenoord at the top of the table. Feyenoord against Utrecht. Incidentally, that kicks off in just under 15 minutes' time or so. That's a feature match in the Dutch Eredivisie. Elsewhere in the German Bundesliga, half-time score, of course, in our feature game, Freiburg 2, Schalke 0. That's at half-time. In the Italian Serie A earlier on today, Empoli 0, Inter 3 is how it ended there. Couple of latest scores to give you. Monza 3, Fiorentina 2. That's a real humdinger of a game there, and Udinese are still 3-0 up at home to Cremonese. Isaac Success, the Nigerian, on the score sheet there for Udinese in that game. AC Milan against Lecce, of course, that kicks off at 6 p.m. That's our featured match in Serie A this afternoon. And just, of course, to remind you as well that later on this evening, Juventus against Napoli, that kicks off at 8:45 p.m. Napoli, of course, champions elect. Juventus bouncing back into the top 4 positions, of course, after their 15 points that were taken away from them earlier on this season. That was reversed, of course, pending further investigation there. So as it stands, they are currently in 3rd spot on 59 points. Big game that is this evening. That's Juventus against Napoli, kicking off at 8:45. Right, okay, second half is underway. Freiburg against Schalke. Let's head back to the Vitality Stadium now for news of that 4th goal for West Ham at Bournemouth. Ash Sandiford.
Yeah, Bournemouth, West Ham United 4. It's another great build-up play, and it's Declan Rice, not with the goal, but Declan Rice stepping in once again into the midfield and nicking the ball off the Bournemouth central midfield, and he plays it out to Bowen, and Bowen is kind of dropped his shoulder and got down towards the byline, and he's kind of crossed it back, and 4 nails at the back post. And remember the old scorpion kick when he's gone behind him and he's flicked it back into the goal and kind of wrong-footed the goalkeeper. Really great build-up play from West Ham, and once again Declan Rice showing his passion and his desire to really break down defences. And that £100 million price tag of Declan Rice is just going to continue to rise and rise as games go on throughout the rest of the season. As it stands, it's Bournemouth 0, West Ham United 4, 76 minutes on the clock.
So West Ham still very much in control in that game. Was it René Higuita, the Mexican goalkeeper, who invented the scorpion kick, I think, way back in the 1980s? Someone might want to correct me on that, but I think it was René Higuita. In fact, he was Colombian. Thanks very much, John. He was Colombian. Right, let's head back to the Wolfsburg Arena for an update on Wolfsburg against Arsenal. Here's Pat Noiret.
Yeah, we had an early chance for Wolfsburg. What was happening was that Arsenal insisted playing that ball out of the back, and they nearly got caught again. And Pajot took a shot which went wide. But and I was just thinking at half time, the way to beat this Wolfsburg team, is to get corners. And Arsenal, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to knock the ball down the side and try to get corners in the box to see whether they can get another goal. With 47 gone, still nicely poised here. It's Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 1.
So it's a match that is still very nicely balanced there. Arsenal, however, though, still trailing at Wolfsburg by 2-1 in that game. Latest scores for you from the Spanish La Liga. Barcelona in action this afternoon, of course, at the top of the table, playing 3rd place Atletico Madrid. Currently goalless there into the 19th minute in that game. 0-0 there. Earlier on today, Elche 0, Valencia 2 is how it finished there. Right, I think you're up to date with all the latest scores from around Europe. There is, of course, a rather big match taking place at 5:30 this afternoon. Brighton against Manchester United. It is the second FA Cup semi-final between these two sides, of course. We'll be building up to that game. Team news coming up very, very shortly too with our reporter Andrew Bonacore. Going to hear now from the Manchester United manager Erik ten Hag and some tactical headaches for him ahead of this game this afternoon.
And then you look to the next game. Then you have to take decisions in tactical approach or in personal approach. And that you and the numbers, when you miss players, and you have to find solutions, and then you look what is the best solution for the moment, and you have to look short term, but also, of course, all the longer term as well. And in this moment, when you play semi-final, it's that event. You have only one opportunity, so you're looking for the best team in that moment.
Yeah, I've got the feeling this has the potential to be a really close contest this afternoon. Brighton against Manchester United. You're certainly not going to write Brighton off by any stretch of the imagination. What a magnificent season they've had under Roberto De Zerbi. Of course, still gunning for a European spot and qualification into Europe this season as well in the Premier League? And can they make it to the FA Cup final against Manchester City by beating United this afternoon? All will be revealed. We'll be crossing over to Andrew Bonacore, our reporter on Football Live, very, very shortly as we build up to that second FA Cup semi-final here on Football Live. Just a reminder, in about 15 minutes time or so, we'll be heading back to Tony and the team in Nigeria for all of your social media comments and an update on the Nigerian players who have been competing and participating in all the top flight matches taking place this afternoon around Europe. Right, we're going to head back around the grounds now, of course, as we reach the closing stages of the two Premier League matches that are currently in progress. Let's head back, first of all, to St James's Park inside the final 10 minutes now. Newcastle against Tottenham. Jack Hesson.
Yep, and it still is as things have been. Newcastle have been dominating possession. Tottenham, again, look much more encouraging in the second half than they did in that opening 20 minutes. It's not that difficult to be better than they were in that opening 20 minutes, to be honest. But yeah, Newcastle seem really composed on the ball, really calm, collected. Things are going as exactly they would have wanted them to go. Getting that sixth goal just really does feel like the cherry and icing on the top of the cake for the Magpies, and it's really about seeing it out, preserving energy levels, not letting Tottenham get to them. There's some aggressive tackling in the game. It's really obvious that Tottenham just want to try and get back up the road, so it's looking like plain sailing then for the Magpies. 80 minutes played, Newcastle United 6, Tottenham 1.
Incredible scoreline. And Jack, just briefly, the summer transfer window will no doubt prove to be exceptionally busy, as it usually is, and a top four finish and Champions League qualification would put Newcastle in a great position where they could attract even more quality players to boost the squad.
Yeah, that's the plan. The interesting thing is, just how many players in that side are before the takeover. You know, you've got Jacob Murphy, Joel Linton, you've got Fabian Schär, and there as well Sean Longstaff in the midfield, and they've all been massive players for Newcastle United this season, and it's a testament to how well they've done under Eddie, how he's got the existing players playing, and how the new players that they've brought in, like Alexander Isak, they've also been excellent as well. So an all-round great team, and you can only see them getting better from here. So third place with the team they've got right now. How will they fare when they start getting more players in that match Howe's style and how he wants to play? It will be really interesting to see, I think.
Certainly will. Some very exciting times ahead, I think, in the northeast for Newcastle United. Still leading Tottenham by 6-1 at St James's Park. Let's just check back in now with Ash Sandiford, who's watching Bournemouth against West Ham for the latest news on that game. Ash.
Yeah, still as it stands, it's currently Bournemouth 0, West Ham United 4, and West Ham United are in absolute cruise control at the moment. David Moyes will be absolutely buzzing with his performance over the last, with their team's performance over the last 3 to 4 weeks. They've scored 11 goals in their last 4 games in all competitions. The last time they won 4-0 was back against Nottingham Forest back in February. So they're matching that as well at the moment, and their form at the moment against the lower half teams in the table is pretty special. They're really doing super well in this game, and I can't see anything other than a West Ham win towards the end of this game. But at the moment, Bournemouth are just huffing and puffing. They've brought on Lewis Cook for a central midfielder, which is going to be a bit of a strange one for the Bournemouth fans to take. But at the moment, as it stands, very settled this game. I can't see Bournemouth really getting anything out of this now. It's currently, as it stands, 83 minutes on the clock. Bournemouth 0, West Ham 4.
Goal news in the German Bundesliga.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
And Freiburg have added a third. They now lead Schalke by 3-0. That goal coming 9 minutes into the second half. Freiburg 3, Schalke 0 is the latest score in our featured match in the German Bundesliga. There, Lucas Holler has added that third goal there for Freiburg. We'll be getting news of that goal very shortly from our reporter Matteo Liguri, who's keeping tabs on the game. At the moment, Matt, Freiburg running away with it.
Yeah, definitely. This is the goal that kills the game, in my opinion, because it actually happened in the best moment for Schalke 04. They were looking like they might get something back from this game, but in the end, Höhler found his way to the goal after a wonderful effort from the middle of the penalty area. The goalkeeper was helpless. There's nothing he could do, and Freiburg managed to kill this game off in the 54th minute. I hope this is not the case of commentator curse, but we'll see, even though I don't believe Schalke can make the comeback. Now, Freiburg fans can keep on chanting because Champions League has never been closer in their history. So, Freiburg lead 3-0.
And heading towards all 3 points at the moment. This is Football Live here on Brille FM. Still plenty of action to come here on the show with further matches later on this afternoon. Bayer Leverkusen against Leipzig from the Bayer Arena. Richard Freckleton will be watching that game for us, kicking off at 5:30 p.m. We also have, of course, Feyenoord against Utrecht. That kicks off in just about a minute's time or so. Jordan Nicoli will be joining us and giving us regular updates from the Stadion Feyenoord in Rotterdam. In the Scottish Premiership, Aberdeen are at home to Rangers at Pittodrie. Leon Jones is watching that game for us here on Football Live. That also kicks off at 5:30 p.m. Action 2 from Italian Serie A. Milan, of course, who are through to the semi-finals of the Champions League, at home to Lecce. Matt Temporal keeping tabs on that game for us here on Football Live as well. And we are 45 minutes away from kickoff in the FA Cup semi-final. Brighton against Manchester United at Wembley Stadium. Andrew Bonacore is watching that game for us, and we will be crossing over to Andrew very shortly for all the team news in that game here on Football Live on Brille FM. Let's just run through some latest scores for you once again from around Europe as they head towards full time in the Dutch Eredivisie. PSV 3, Ajax 0 is now is the latest score, rather. It remains. So PSV will be consolidating second spot in the table there. Feyenoord against Utrecht, as I mentioned, of course, just about to kick off in that game. In the German Bundesliga, as we just heard from our reporter, Matteo Liguri, Freiburg 3, Schalke 0 is the latest scoreline. Leverkusen at home to Leipzig, kicking off at 5:30 p.m. That's a second featured match today in the German Bundesliga. What a cracker that should be. Leverkusen just on the fringes of European qualification at the moment. Leipzig, of course, looking to stay and remain in the top 4 positions this evening. In Italian Serie A, a result from earlier on today, Empoli 0, Inter 3 is how it ended there. Monza still 3-2 up at home to Fiorentina. Fiorentina had taken a 2-0 lead in that game, but an amazing comeback from Monza. What a season they've had. Still leading by 3-2 with about 4 minutes or so remaining in the game. Udinese 3, Cremonese 0. It remains there. In Spanish La Liga, it's still goalless between Barcelona and Atletico Madrid in the match of the weekend at the top of La Liga, as Barcelona look to stretch their lead at the top of the table. Earlier on today, Valencia dispatched Elche by 2-0. And elsewhere, of course, we have plenty of action coming up in the Nigerian Premier League as well, with plenty of games kicking off in around about 14 minutes' time or so. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest scores here on Football Live on Brille FM. And just a reminder that we'll be crossing over to Tony and the crew in Nigeria in about 5 minutes' time for all of your social media comments. But we are heading towards full time in our 2 matches currently in progress in the Premier League. Let's just check back in now with Jack Hesson, who's watching Newcastle against Tottenham. Jack.
Yeah, we're coming into the closing stages now, and as I said, Newcastle really just looking to shut up shop. A great opportunity, however, there for Danjuma, who came on as a substitute. The ball fell to him, the great cross up and across the box. It falls to him, and he hits it straight at Nick Pope. Probably one of the rare saves that Nick Pope has had to make. It's only the 3rd shot on target this afternoon. Keep in mind, Newcastle had about 5 shots on target in the opening 10 minutes. Really does sum up Tottenham's afternoon. 88 minutes played. Newcastle 6, Tottenham 1.
Back to the Vitality Stadium we go. In fact, before we get there, I can tell you further goal news coming in the match between Bournemouth and West Ham.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
And it looks as though the Hammers are trying to outdo Newcastle this afternoon, because it is now Bournemouth 0, West Ham 5. You could not have predicted that before start of play. Bournemouth 0, West Ham 5 now. The latest score in that relegation tussle. And you would think that that will certainly ensure West Ham's survival in the Premier League this season. It's certainly not going to do their goal difference any harm either. As for Bournemouth, well, it would leave them 5 points clear of the drop zone. But an amazing scoreline there from the Vitality Stadium. In fact, I can tell you the jury might be out on that goal for West Ham. It could be that VAR are looking into it, but we will confirm that very, very shortly. In fact, it has been ruled out, so it remains Bournemouth 0, West Ham 4 at the Vitality Stadium. Let's head back to our feature that we are covering in the Women's Champions League semi-final. First leg, Wolfsburg against Arsenal. Arsenal looking to get back on level terms in this game. Pat Noiret.
Yeah, they're playing quite well. Just before you came to, they had a chance from a corner, actually. But they're very clever. I'm quite impressed with their shape they've got when they haven't got the ball. It's 5 at the back. There's a diamond 4 in the middle of the park. But what's happened now is that the goalkeeper, Arsenal goalkeeper, has gone down with an injury, right? Now, what I will say to you, I know about this. Don't ask where I got information from. They do this quite a lot. She's gone down, okay, so the players can get a bit of fluid. And while they're doing that, they're getting instructions, tactical instructions. It's a ploy which is used by Chelsea women and also Arsenal women as well. Goalkeeper goes down, injured, stop the game and then get some instructions on. It's I'm surprised the referee hasn't spotted it. So Zimberger in goal for Arsenal has done that. She's now up. They're going to take the corner. So with 62 gone, it's still Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 1.
So still all to play for there at the Wolfsburg Arena. You're listening to Football Live here on Brilla FM. We will, of course, be crossing to Nigeria very, very shortly for all of your social media comments. After that, we'll certainly be getting the build-up towards that FA Cup semi-final between Brighton and Manchester United at Wembley with our reporter Andrew Bonacore. Let's head back to the Vitality Stadium for that news of that goal that was ruled out for West Ham, who are, of course, playing Bournemouth this afternoon. Ash Sandiford.
Yeah, it is still currently Bournemouth 0, West Ham United 4, but we thought that it was Bournemouth 0, West Ham United 5, with a great little build-up play from West Ham United. Building again from the back. Loads of confidence at the moment, West Ham. They're absolutely flying. And they've got the ball up into probably about 25, 26 yards out, just popping the ball around nicely. And Declan Rice has just popped it outside to Fornals. And Fornals has just kind of cut the ball back to Maxwell Cornet. And he's just curled it into the bottom right-hand corner. But unfortunately, VAR stepped in and it was just slightly, probably about half a yard offside. Correct decision from the officials, as that's what we want in this game at the moment. But as it stands, it's still Bournemouth 0, West Ham United 4, and there's probably about 2 or 3 minutes to go of injury time.
What a terrific 3 points that will be for David Moyes' side this afternoon. Bournemouth 0, West Ham 4. And I can tell you the final whistle has in fact gone at the Vitality Stadium. So that is a final score. Bournemouth 0, West Ham 4. They're still playing at St James's Park, where it remains Newcastle 6, Tottenham 1. We'll be getting full-time reports after we have crossed over to Tony and the team in Nigeria for all of your latest social media interaction and a roundup of the Nigerian players who have been in action today in the major leagues all around Europe. See you shortly. You are listening to Football Live on Brila FM, powered by NairaBet, with Chris Baldwin. Yes, welcome back. This is Football Live here on Brila FM with me, Chris Baldwin, right the way through until 7 o'clock this evening. Let's just check in now with final full-time reports on the two Premier League matches that kicked off earlier on today. They both ended. First of all, let's just check in now with Jack Hesson at St James's Park, Newcastle against Tottenham. And what an impressive afternoon it was for the Magpies, Jack.
Absolutely, what an impressive afternoon it's been for Eddie Howe's men, and they just seem to be going from next level to next level in their hunt for the top four, which really does feel like it's all but secured for them potentially, as they go 6 points clear of Tottenham Hotspur, who are still now in fifth. And we expected a tight and explosive, potentially really competitive game at the start of this. We didn't know how exactly it was going to go, especially with Newcastle losing by 3-0 last weekend. But any chance of this being competitive was quickly dispelled in that frantic opening 20 minutes. Jacob Murphy opening the scoring on 2 minutes. Joel Linton following up. A great ball from Fabian Schär to him made it 2. Jacob Murphy then added a second for him and a third for Newcastle with a 30-yard pile driver that left Luis rooted to the spot. Alexander Isak came into the party on 19 minutes. A great ball from Joe Willock in that occasion to get it to Isak for a goal, and then a lovely tight finish on 21 minutes made it 5-0 to Newcastle, and a second goal for Isak. Luis was substituted at half-time. They're saying it was potentially because of an injury, and Fraser Forster played the second half. Tottenham showed signs of encouragement when Harry Kane scored a consolation goal on 49 minutes. A nice finish for the Englishman, but then the two substitutions combined for Newcastle United within minutes of coming on the park on 67 minutes when Almiron's deflected effort fell so kindly to Callum Wilson to make it 6-1 to Newcastle United. 6 points clear now of Tottenham Hotspur. And for Tottenham Hotspur now, when you look at the league table, they've got Brighton Hove Albion in 8th, just 4 points behind them. Liverpool in 7th, just 3 points behind them. And Aston Villa in 6th, just 2 points behind them. So really for them now, they're looking at trying and shoring up the 5th place spot, because 4th place seems out of the question. For Newcastle, they go 3rd in the table on goal difference. Manchester United will of course have a game in hand, but it really does look like they are heading to the Champions League next season, as it's full time at St James's Park. Newcastle United 6, Tottenham Hotspur 1.
An absolutely resounding result for Newcastle United this afternoon. And as Jack said, certainly cementing their position in the top 4 in the Premier League. Goal news to tell you about in the Women's Champions League semi-final.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
And Arsenal have come back from, 2 goals down. It's now 2 apiece at the Wolfsburg Arena. We'll be getting news of that equalising goal for the Gunners very shortly from Pat Noiret. Goal news too from our featured match in the Dutch Eredivisie.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
Where they play 15 minutes and Feyenoord, top of the table. They've made a good start. They lead Utrecht by 1-0 in that game. So let's head back to the Wolfsburg Arena then for news of that second equalising goal for Arsenal in their first leg Champions League semi-final tie with Wolfsburg. Here's Pat Noiret.
Yeah, 73 gone. It's now Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 2. Well-worked goal. They kept the ball in the final third. Very comfortable on the ball. Managed to move it wide. A cross came in from the right-hand side, and Blackstenier was in the penalty area and put it away as you like, as easy as you like. So it's still all to play for. Nicely balanced now. 74 gone. So it's still Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 2.
Yeah, fantastic turnaround of events there at the Wolfsburg Arena. Any further developments in that game, you will hear them here on Football Live on Brila FM. I can tell you that there's goal news too in La Liga.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
Barcelona, top of the table, of course. They've taken the lead. Ferran Torres has scored in their match at home to Atletico Madrid. So Barcelona 1, Atletico Madrid 0 is the latest score there from the Camp Nou. It went to VAR, but it's been given. So as they approach half-time there, it is Barcelona 1, Atletico Madrid 0. Our feature match in the Dutch Eredivisie, as I've mentioned, of course, sees top of the table Feyenoord at home to Utrecht, and it's a great start for the hosts. Jordan Nicoli.
Yes, fantastic start for Feyenoord. They have opened the scoring. They would have heard about the result between Ajax and PSV, and they would have seen this as a chance to go 11 points clear of Ajax and 8 points clear of PSV. So the dream is still alive. I'll tell you about the goal. It came from the right-hand side. Pedersen linked up excellently with Jimenez. Jimenez then played it back into Pedersen with a 1-2. He crossed the ball. It was dummied by Jimenez. Great move. And it fell kindly for Szymanski, who puts it in the back of the net for his 9th goal of the season. A great season the Polish midfielder is having. Nothing Barkas could do in the goal to stop that shot. It was well placed. Great goal for Feyenoord. A great start to this match. They've been excellent, playing some great football, and it's a fantastic start that the fans would have wanted to see. So with 17 minutes gone, it's Feyenoord 1, Utrecht 0.
So Feyenoord, a goal to the good there at the Stadion Feyenoord in Rotterdam. And of course, in the Premier League earlier on this afternoon, West Ham ran right at the end at the Vitality Stadium with a convincing victory to pretty much ensure Premier League survival next season. With a full-time report, here's Ash Sandiford.
Yeah, convincing. Like you said, it's finished here. Bournemouth 0, West Ham United 4, and a really fast, quick-fire start from West Ham United with goals at the beginning from Mikel Antonio, with a great corner from Aaron Cresswell, with Antonio free as a bird in the box, just nodding it down. No chance for the goalkeeper. 7 minutes later, after 12 minutes, it's Lucas Paceto with a goal. Very similar, but down the right-hand side. No corner this time, just with a cross, cut back from Kufau, and a good bullet header from Paqueta into the goal to make it 2-0 to West Ham. And then they were in complete cruise control after that. Just before half-time, I should say, Thomas Souček had a great little flick on, to be honest with you, from another corner from Aaron Cresswell. Set piece is key for David Moyes and their men at the moment. Souček tries to get on the end of the header, ends up going to the back post, and Declan Rice, first touch, bang, smash, straight into the bottom corner, and absolutely buried the game from there on. 3-0 at half-time, and then in that second half, it was cruise control for West Ham. Plenty of chances, really, from both ends, but really Bournemouth didn't have much to offer. And after, like I said, after 72 minutes, Pablo Fornals, the substitution, comes on and scores himself a scorpion kick with a great cross from the right-hand side from Jared Bowen, just cutting it back. And that scorpion kick was an absolute beauty of a finish that wrong-footed the goalkeeper. It finished 4-0 here from West Ham, 4 cracking goals, and gets themselves into 13th place now in the Premier League. And hopefully David Moyes and his men can start looking up. Because West Ham, to be honest with you, won all 4 of their last, or I should say 5 of their last Premier League matches against newly promoted sides. It's finished here at the Vitality Stadium. It's Bournemouth 0, West Ham United 4.
And Ash, that gives West Ham some real clear daylight now between themselves and the bottom 3. A 6-point gap has opened up now. So they should be safe, although they've got a challenging run-in at home to Liverpool, away to Palace, away to Manchester City, and at home to Manchester United. But you would think that they will be safe this season. Where does this leave David Moyes, though? Because he's been under pressure, relentless pressure this season. Do you think that he'll have the confidence of the board to take them into next season?
Well, I think he deserves full confidence. Look at his history of getting the teams and getting West Ham United into Europe again. It's been absolutely incredible from David Moyes this season and the seasons before that. And West Ham fans really have to remember a few years ago playing championship football and now fighting on all fronts really at the moment in that Europa Conference League, reaching a semi-final. I know it's Europa Conference, it's the 3rd tier of European football, but like I said, it's all about playing in European football. And West Ham fans need to remember where they were a few years back, because this is a sign of David Moyes getting their team and propelling them towards the higher end of the table. And in 13th place at the moment, they'll be bringing lots of confidence from that 2-2 draw last week against Arsenal and today's 4-0 thrashing of Bournemouth, firing themselves into higher ends of the league. So these fixtures they're like a free hit, to be honest with you. I think they'll only need 1 or 2 points between now and the end of the season. So David Moyes and his men will be looking forward and looking up rather than looking down.
Thanks very much to Ash Sandiford, who was keeping tabs on Bournemouth against West Ham this afternoon, with West Ham winning by 4-0. And incidentally, just looking ahead to their fixtures, they have, of course, that Europa Conference League semi-final against Alkmaar. The first leg on the 11th of May, and then the second leg on the 18th of May. Can they get through to the final? Can they win it? What a season it could be for them in the end. If they can win some European silverware by the end of it, all will be revealed. You're listening to Football Live here on Briller FM. We're well into the second, or rather the third hour, I should say, of the programme here on Football Live. And of course, we are about 22 minutes away from kickoff in the second FA Cup semi-final at Wembley this weekend. It is Brighton against Manchester United, of course. Andrew Bonacore is watching this game for us this afternoon, and you've got all the latest team news, I believe, Andrew.
That's right, Chris. Well, the chance of a return to Wembley for a cup final against Manchester City is a huge carrot for both clubs today. United are looking to reach their first FA Cup final since 2016, while Brighton are hoping to get to the final for the first time since losing to United in 1983. Brighton have been massively impressive this season, even pushing for a Champions League spot, and coach Roberto Di Zerbi is gaining an impressive reputation. Today he has to do without striker Evan Ferguson up front, with Enciso coming in for the Irishman, who's injured, while defender Joel Veltman, who was a doubt, does indeed start at the back. Red Devils boss Ten Hag, desperate for a positive response from his players after that unacceptable European exit, makes 3 changes from that humbling defeat to Sevilla. Marcus Rashford starts in place of Jadon Sancho, while Bruno Fernandes returns from suspension. He comes in for Marcel Sabitzer. Luke Shaw replaces Harry Maguire, who's suspended, and Shaw will slot in at centre-back, with Diego Dalot shifting over to left-back. Anthony Martial is fit to start after coming off injured on Thursday. Expect an open game, Chris, from these two attack-minded teams. This could be a classic. From Wembley Stadium, it's Brighton versus Manchester United.
Yeah, we're expecting a really close contest. And Andrew, United, as we know, they already have one domestic trophy in the cabinet, but as we know, Brighton aren't just there to make up the numbers this afternoon, are they? They pose a massive threat.
Absolutely, and they want to add even more gloss to what's been a decent season for Ten Hag. So if they can get to the final against their previously noisy neighbours, then I think they would consider this a very, very decent season indeed, as well as that Champions League spot. Yeah, we're expecting a very good game from two very forward-thinking managers who have got attack on their minds.
That's Brighton against Manchester United at Wembley Stadium, the second FA Cup semi-final for a place in the final, where, of course, the winners will meet Manchester City. Let's get an update from our featured match we've been covering this afternoon in the Bundesliga. In fact, before we do, I can tell you there's been a further goal in that game. Freiburg against Schalke.
The goal,
Freiburg 4.
powered by NairaBet.
Schalke 0 is now the latest score there, with about 6 minutes or so remaining in that game. Matteo Liguri will be giving us details of that second goal right now. Matteo. Matteo, news of that fourth goal for Freiburg.
Freiburg have actually killed the game. It's 4-0. And Matthias Ginter, one of the best defenders in Bundesliga, Inter are looking to sign him, even though it's going to be a bit difficult because many contenders are in this race. Manages to take it nicely and beating the goalkeeper with a wonderful shot at the bottom right corner to make it hopeless for Schalke 04 fans. He was served beautifully by Merlin Roll, who was in great position himself.
Well, I think we've just lost Matteo there, but we got the gist of what's occurring there. Freiburg 4, Schalke 0. The latest score there, with about 6 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes remaining in that game. And as it stands in the Bundesliga table, Freiburg moving up to third place on 53 points as they look, of course, to secure a Champions League place this season. It's all very, very tight at the top, of course, as well, between Dortmund and Bayern. Just 1 point separating those two sides. Bayern, as we know, ran away with it, didn't they, last season when they won their 11th consecutive title. But Dortmund, at the moment, a point clear of Bayern at the top of the table. Now, our second featured match in the German Bundesliga this afternoon takes place at the Bayer Arena. It's Bayer Leverkusen against Leipzig. And watching that match for us this afternoon here on Football Live, it's a very good afternoon to Richard Freckleton.
Good afternoon to you, Chris. I'm really looking forward to this game here at the Bayer Arena. After the exploits on Thursday in the Europa League game, in which Leverkusen were successful in getting through to the semi-final, in which they'll face Roma. They are buoyed with full confidence going into this game. They've got a fantastic recent record in terms of where they won 5 games in their last 6 Bundesliga outings. But they're up against a very testing team in Leipzig. Leipzig currently 4th in the Bundesliga. And both teams really have a big incentive here because if Bayer Leverkusen win, they're currently in 7th at the moment. They're just 1 point behind Mainz in 6th. So it's a lot at stake. But what a brilliant job that a lot of listeners out there will know of Alonso. Xabi Alonso, the former Liverpool legend, Real Madrid player. This is his first season. And the exploits of goals and now on the verge of actually going one step to the final of the Europa League. It's been a magnificent first season for the legend from Spain. So coming to the team news here, I mean, the Bayer Leverkusen, they'll be looking again for Diaby, who's their top scorer with 9 goals, to actually continue with that streak. And he's backed up by Frimpong in midfield, who's just 1 behind with 8 goals. But the top scorer, or the legendary top scorer for Leipzig, is one that we will all know. If you're a fan of the Premier League, you'll know of Timo Werner, the legend, who is the only player from Leipzig who has got 100 Bundesliga goals. He certainly is a legend in his second spell at the club. And this is going to be a very tough encounter, even though Leipzig have got 3 wins out of 5 matches in their head-to-head, with Leverkusen only having the 1. Leverkusen are in red-hot form, and I'm expecting goals in this game.
Let's hope so. And it really is an important fixture, isn't it, Richard, for both sides? As you mentioned, Leverkusen just on the fringes of qualifying for Europe. Leipzig, on the other hand, in that battle with about 3 or 4 other clubs for a Champions League berth this season. As it stands at the moment, they dropped out of the top 4 positions, with Freiburg beating Schalke at the moment. But it's a huge game for both sides.
It's a massive game, a real big important game. And Marco Rose, who I haven't mentioned, who is the Leipzig manager, has done a very good job, but he knows that this is a big incentive to come here to the Bay Arena and to try and get the 3 points. They'll look clearly for Timo Werner to continue his very good form. But as I say, both teams are in good form, with good wins against Bayer Leverkusen. They actually beat Bayern Munich in their run, as well as Dortmund were beaten by Leipzig. So it's a real hard one to pick, despite looking at the head-to-head. But maybe perhaps the tiredness and the fatigue of Thursday's exploits will maybe give Leipzig the edge. But I'm looking forward to this game. I mean, we haven't got too long now before the game starts.
That's Richard Freckleton keeping tabs on Bayer Leverkusen against Leipzig in the German Bundesliga this afternoon. Let's just check back in with Pat Moretz, who's been watching Wolfsburg women against Arsenal women in the Champions League semi-final first leg. They are approaching full time there, and at the moment, is it all still level there, Pat Moretz?
Yeah, still Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 2. And what Arsenal are doing, they're just dropping back a bit deep, allowing Wolfsburg to come onto them. But Wolfsburg got really quick, fast players, so they can't allow any space behind them. So what they're doing is sitting deep and then trying to hit them with a counter. The problem trying to do that, they have to pass the ball rather than hit, because they haven't got the fast players up front. It's quite interesting watching this. But at the moment, I think Arsenal are holding their own. They're very good on the ball. They do take chances, like the men's team. And every time they get the ball near the goalkeeper, I think, no, don't do that. And it go long. But it's looking good for Arsenal for the time being. They're now dropping back. into what I call a low block, and then when they get it, they keep it and not really giving the ball away. So at the moment, 8-9 gone. Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 2.
And that's going to set up the second leg very, very nicely indeed if it stays that way. Let's get an update in the Dutch Eredivisie. Feyenoord against Utrecht. Here's Jordan Nicoli.
Yeah, there was a claim for a penalty for Feyenoord. It was great play from Paxia on the right-hand side. He beat his man and he whipped in a great cross, and it was Biegeva who just seemed to handle the ball as it was crossed towards his path. The referee said no handball and said play on. But from what I could see, it definitely touched his arm. We've seen them given, especially in the Premier League, but not given today. Feyenoord have had 70% of the possession, but only one shot on target. Fans will be a bit on the edge of their seats. They know that this is a big match for Feyenoord in the title race, and they'll want to see them have a few more shots at goal and make use of this possession. But so far, as things stand, it's Feyenoord 1 and Utrecht 0.
This is Football Live on this Sunday afternoon. Action 2 in the Scottish Premiership on the programme. Aberdeen against Rangers kicks off in about 11 minutes' time or so. Watching that match for this afternoon is Leon Jones.
Good afternoon, Chris. Well, we've had a fair few goals on Football Live already today, but I think this game's going to add a few more to that tally. Aberdeen, they've not beaten Rangers in the league since December 2018. And the last win against Rangers in any competition was in 2019 in the Scottish Cup quarter-final. Barry Robson's made one change to his Aberdeen side, bringing in Ramadani for the suspended Graham Shinney. And Rangers, they are unchanged from their win at St Mirren last weekend. And they'll be looking at Alfredo Morelos to add to his 11 goals this season on the back of his brace he scored at Ibrox 8 days ago. Well, Rangers are usually in a title fight at this point of the season, but they're 13 points behind Celtic, so it's fairly safe to say the Premiership title will be going to the green side of Glasgow this year. And Aberdeen's upturn in form will give them confidence that they can pick up a first league win in over 5 years against Rangers. Should be a crack at this one.
Should be, Leon. And Aberdeen, as we know, they have been in terrific form, haven't they? 6 consecutive top-flight wins on the bounce now. It's hoisted them to third in the table, as you pointed out in your preview. You have to go back a few years since they last beat Rangers. I think it's 14 matches now in all competitions without a win against the Glasgow club. But they've played each other a couple of times already this season, and they've been pretty close affairs as well.
Yeah, Aberdeen, they've looked good this season in the matches against Rangers. They got taken to extra time in the Cup not too long ago. And like you said, Aberdeen are on a 6-win streak. That's the longest active streak in the Scottish Premiership at the moment. I think Celtic have only got the highest one with 12. But Aberdeen, yeah, they're in a great run of form. And this is a good chance for them to end that barren run against against Rangers, sorry.
That's Leon Jones, who's across that Scottish Premiership match for us this afternoon. Aberdeen against Rangers, which kicks off in about 9 minutes' time. You are listening to Football Live.
4 hours of football every Saturday and Sunday on Brilla FM with Football Live.
But it always starts with us.
All the key action from around Europe's top leagues.
Wow. Just wow.
Will the Serie A top scorer strike again? After his stoppage time consolation goal against Milan in the Champions League semi-final, Victor Osimhen is back playing in Italy later on this afternoon when Napoli take on Juventus in Turin. The Nigerian superstar has 21 goals in the league so far, and for every goal he scores in this match, our partners at NairaBet will give you a 500 Naira free bet. So if he scores a hat-trick, you will have 1,500 Naira to play with. Get involved and visit www.nairabet.com/bonus for more info. Minimum acca stake required is 500 Naira. 18 plus only. Please gamble responsibly.
Liverpool take on Tottenham Hotspur. And Fulham up against Manchester City in the Premier League. Next Sunday. Exclusive coverage on Football Live. You are listening to Football Live on Brilla FM, powered by NairaBet. Have your say on today's action and interact with Brilla FM on Twitter at BreelerFM889, on Facebook at 889 BreelerFM, and on Instagram, BreelerFM889.
It is drama you will not want to miss.
Well, against all the odds, Bournemouth are taking the lead and not a single shot on target up to this point.
Yeah, it was a James Ward-Prowse classic. He just kills it beautifully.
Well, it's been absolute chaos.
Yes, Josh. Football's a cruel game. You know, you can have all the possession you want, but if you don't put the ball at the back of the net.
It was again Kate and Son, like the good old days.
But this show never disappoints.
Yes, well, it's Brentford 0, Crystal Palace 1 here, and it's Eberechi who's got the goal.
Oh my word, Josh. I cannot believe how Phil Foden has not made this 2-0.
Yes, Barry, it's a second goal for Borussia Dortmund, and the Dice Watch Gabon are running away with it now.
Today's show is powered by Hollandia and Chivita. Football Live here on Brilla FM with me, Chris Baldwin, in the hot seat, keeping you company through until 7 this evening. Plenty of action still to come here. Let's get some full-time reports. First of all, though, in the German Bundesliga, let's cross over to Matteo Liguri, where it's all finished in the match between Freiburg and Schalke for a final score.
Yeah, fans at the Europa Park Stadion in Freiburg are chanting like I've never seen them doing before. Freiburg are now third in the league after their 4-0 battering of Schalke 04. They were always in control of the game. Since the first minute, they were pushing on Schalke's defence, which eventually crumbled and conceded 4 goals. Great performance by Gregoritsch, who managed to get a wonderful race in the first half, but then Höhler and Ginter completed the job. Now, the Champions League spots fight in the Bundesliga is one of the best ones you'll ever see, because they got Freiburg with 53 points, Union Berlin and Leipzig with respectively 52 and 51, but Freiburg have a game in hand. Freiburg have a game in hand, which means that if Union Berlin and Leipzig win their games respectively, then the fight will change again. So I wouldn't miss that for any reason in the world. We should keep an eye on Bundesliga, not only for the Champions League spots fight, but also for the relegation scramble, because Schalke 04 now sits 17th with 24 points. They will be sure to remain in Bundesliga if they manage to get 15th, which is now Bochum at 27 points, so it's just a 3-point gap. But their best bet is probably to get in the relegation playoff, which would be granted to them if they got 16th and score that additional point, which is dividing them by Stuttgart. So Bundesliga, as always, an unpredictable league. This year, exceptionally, also at the top, Bayern Munich not being first, surprisingly. So I am all for that, Chris. Final time result, Freiburg 4, Schalke 0.
Yeah, convincing result then for Freiburg. As mentioned, they're now third as it stands in the table on 53 points, bouncing into the top 4 positions. And as Matteo was pointing out there, it's looking pretty grim for Schalke at the moment. They are, 3 points away from safety, but at the moment it looks as though they will be heading back to the second tier of German football, having, of course, been promoted last season, but you never know, still plenty of football still to play. Just a reminder that our featured match, of course, our second featured match in the German Bundesliga, Bayer Leverkusen against Leipzig, that kicks off in about 4 minutes time or so. Updates throughout the course of the program here from Richard Freckleton from the Bay Arena on that game. It's all over at the Wolfsburg Arena in that Champions League semi-final in the Women's Champions League, the first leg tie, Wolfsburg against Arsenal for a full-time report. Here is Pat Noiret.
Yeah, it did finish Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 2. The game started and both sides, not many clear chances until the 19th minute when it was a long ball from the back. The ball found Justice Steele, who came inside from the left-hand side, and then a solid to Pablo, and probably made it 1-0 on the 19th. And after that, they carried on as normal until there was a mistake in the back where Arsenal were trying to play at the back, and Jocelyn Dare was there. The centre-back trying to play didn't see her, and then on the 24th made it 2-0. On the 45th minute, it was a corner from the right-hand side, taken by Catley. Long ball over the top from a corner, and Rafael Sousa made it 2-1. The second half, bit tame with the affair in the first sort of like 10-15 minutes until on the 70th minute, Arsenal managed to work the ball through the midfield to the right-hand side when Pelova found Blachowski in the middle, just where the goal, where the penalty spot and made it 2-2. And one thing I'm going to tell you about, Chris, on the 90th minute, it was a bad tackle ordered off on McCabe. McCabe reacted. Both of them got yellow cards on the 90th minute and then had a free kick which came to nothing. So all to play for on the 1st of May. There are going to be 60,000 people at Emirates. Looking forward to it. So it's finished. Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 2.
Yeah, it should be a great evening, shouldn't it? What a fantastic comeback from the Arsenal women this afternoon, having been 2 goals down in that game. And of course, they were without their talisman as well, weren't they? Or taliswoman, I should say, Leah Williamson, who of course got that injury in midweek in the Women's Super League. But a brilliant comeback, sets up the second leg very, very nicely indeed, as Arsenal look to progress through to the final of the Women's Champions League. You're listening to Football Live here on Brilla FM. Let's get an update on our feature match in the Dutch Eredivisie. Feyenoord against Utrecht as they approach half-time in that game. Jordan Nicoli.
Yeah, it should be 2-0 to Feyenoord. Idrissi picked up the ball on the left-hand side and he cut inside of Clavier and he just had a tame effort as he tried to curl it into the far corner. It was a decent attempt from Idrissi, but with all of the possession that Feyenoord are having in this match, they really should be more than 1 goal ahead of this game. They need to take more control in terms of having shots and being more of a threat in front of goal against Utrecht. But they are dominating the possession. They have barely put a foot wrong when it comes to passes. I would love to see a stat for the amount of completed passes for Feyenoord today. They have been superb in keeping possession, but possession does not win matches. As we approach half-time, it's still Feyenoord 1, Utrecht 0.
Meanwhile, at Wembley Stadium, they are just about to kick off in that second FA Cup semi-final this weekend. Brighton against Manchester United. Let's head back to rejoin Andrew Bonacore. And Andrew, just looking at Manchester United, as we know, out of the Europa League now after losing on aggregate to a very average Sevilla side, with Ten Hag describing the defeat as unacceptable. Just how much damage will that have done to United's confidence ahead of this semi-final?
I think they really do have to shake it off. You're absolutely right. It was the nature of defeat. It was embarrassing. It was littered with mistakes, and unfortunately, it was that spine, that defensive spine of Maguire and De Gea that were primarily responsible for the errors. Luckily, you could say, if you're a Man United fan, Maguire is injured today. Suspended, so misses the game. But De Gea, who has been pretty dependable all season, so you can forgive him that mistake. He does, of course, start. So Ten Hag is going to be looking for an immediate response from his team. He did say that the defeat was unacceptable, but he said he spared them the hairdryer treatment because he just didn't see the point. So he would have worked with his players and just said to them, listen, we have a chance of getting to another final this season. We can make this an amazing season. Almost guaranteed Champions League football next season. They've already got 1 piece of silverware in the cabinet for this season. They have a chance, if you ignore that Europa League exit during the week, they have a chance to make this a very, very successful season. So I think he would have dangled the carrot in front of them rather than hit them with the stick and say, listen, we've got a chance to really do something here. So let's stand up and give a good account of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. All things considered, they've still got the opportunity for a really strong finish to the season, Manchester United. As for Brighton as well, Andrew, quite simply, it's been an incredible season, hasn't it, under Roberto De Zerbi, competing for a European qualification spot, and I guess an appearance in the FA Cup final, and maybe even going on to win it. That will absolutely be the icing on the cake.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful for them. They're now really an established Premier League team, so they haven't had to worry at any point about going down. Even in their first season in the Premier League, they were in no danger at any stage of going straight back down. So they're an established Premier League team, and it's always good for the fans to have a day out. They had a semi-final a few years ago, but another semi-final today. And to be honest, after that result, I know we talk about it so much, that Europa League defeat for Man United, you could argue that Brighton go into this game, given the form that they're in, as favourites. And, you know, they have something of a rock star manager in Italian Roberto De Zerbi. And, you know, a good performance today and maybe some silverware, and he could join that Italian elite of European managers like Mancini, even like Conte, and even managers like Carlo Ancelotti. So it's a great opportunity for him personally, but it's a wonderful day for Brighton as a club. But this is the kind of day that they're going to have to start getting used to, because they are on the up.
Yeah, Roberto De Zerbi has certainly done his CV no harm whatsoever with his the way his side have played this season. Brighton against Manchester United. They are up and running there at Wembley. Any goal news, any news of any incidents, you will hear it first here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Action coming up later on in Italian Serie A. Our featured match is Milan against Lecce. They kick off in about 27 minutes time or so. And watching that match is Matt Temporal.
Yes, good afternoon. It's high stakes at the San Siro today as Champions League semi-finalists AC Milan face Lecce. The Rossinieri will surely be boosted by their European victory over the runaway Serie A leaders Napoli, but at the same time concerned about their domestic prospects after Juventus's points deduction being overturned has left them outside the top four. A good result for Lecce could see them open up a gap between themselves and the dreaded relegation places. The team news: Milan manager Stefano Pioli has made 4 changes. Giroud, Benacer, Kjaer and captain Davide Calabria, who is suspended, are replaced by Rebic, Macias, Thiaw and Kalulu. Just the one change for Lecce as Lamek Banda comes in for Gabriel Strefezza.
And just looking at Milan as well, Matt, as we know, through to the last 4 of the Champions League, of course, after beating Serie A rivals and champions-elect Napoli in the week for the first time, in fact, since 2007. But you wouldn't write Lecce off, would you? Because they earned a decent point at home to Milan back in January after throwing away a 2-0 lead as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to look at Lecce's performance this season. They've got to be happy with it. I mean, they got promoted last season as champions of Serie B, and it's a very difficult decision league to stay in. But yeah, you're right. Milan, you know, they're very strong at the back, aren't they? As they've proved against Napoli, and even though they've made 4 changes, you would still make Milan heavy favourites for this game. But we'll see what happens. There's about half an hour, just less than half an hour to go until kick-off.
That's Milan against Lecce in Italian Serie A. Half-time whistle has blown at this stadium. Feyenoord against Utrecht. Let's get a report from Jordan Nicoli.
At the Equip Stadium, it's half-time between Feyenoord and Utrecht. There's only 5 games left of the season for title-chasing Feyenoord, and every game is a must-win for them. And so far, they are doing just that. They are winning the match, but with the amount of possession that they have had, they could be winning this match more convincingly. The goal came from Szymanski. It was a good cross on the right-hand side from Pedersen, and Szymanski finished well. Feyenoord are 1-0 to the good. However, Utrecht have been countering and have been looking a threat from the counter-attack. So Feyenoord might just want to get that second goal just to secure this win. But so far, so good for title-chasing Feyenoord as they lead 1-0 at half-time.
Yeah, Feyenoord, of course, looking to stay ahead of their rivals PSV and Ajax, who were in action earlier on today. PSV beating Ajax by 3-0. But you can't write off Utrecht. They got a 1-1 draw at home to Feyenoord at the beginning of the year. A very late equaliser for Feyenoord from Alireza Jahanbakhsh on that occasion. But at the moment, they are doing what they need to do. They lead by 1-0 at half-time in that game. And as it stands at the moment, at the top of the table, they remain 8 points clear at the top of the Dutch Eredivisie table. Kickoff has, they're underway at the Bayer Arena. Bayer Leverkusen against Leipzig. Around about 5 or 6 minutes played in that game. Let's get an update on the early salvos from our reporter, Richard Freckleton.
It's Bayer Leverkusen 0, Leipzig 0. But they've really started well, Leipzig. They've got the nickname in terms of being Red Bulls, and they've started with a lot of energy, I have to say. And they've already forced the reserve goalkeeper Hradovin into a very good save with his feet. There's been 1 or 2 shots already from distance from the Leipzig team, one from Gvardiol, and also Werner tried to get a shot off as well. But it seems like they've started very slowly, and whether that's got any effect from Thursday night, some exploits in the Europa League with Bayer Leverkusen, we don't know as yet. But very much on the front foot so far with Leipzig. But at the moment, it's remaining Bayer Leverkusen 0, Leipzig 0.
And Richard, just briefly, just a word on Xabi Alonso. It's his first managerial role, isn't it, at Leverkusen? How would you assess his success so far this season?
He's been very impressive, I have to say, Chris. I mean, considering that this is his first major job and reaching the semi-finals of the Europa League up against Jose Mourinho's Roma. I mean, the fans around here, they couldn't have asked for more. And considering that they are also this season in around a spot for another European place where a win today would keep them right amongst everybody for a European spot, you've got to be very happy. And the fans over here, 1 or 2 of us spoken to, they're absolutely delighted with what has happened so far under Alonso. They're playing very good football, and also when it comes to goals per game, or in the last 15 games, they've scored at least 2 goals on 12 separate occasions. I mean, so they're not short of scoring goals in games, are Bayer Leverkusen. But they've got to step up their gear so far, because they're under increasing pressure all the while against Leipzig.
Currently goalless, though, at the Bay Arena, Leverkusen against Leipzig. Let's check in now with Leon Jones at Pittodrie. He's watching Aberdeen against Rangers. Any goal news in that game, Leon?
No goal news yet, and no chances to speak of either. It's Rangers who've had the better of the start. It's coming down the left side of Cantwell. He's looking dangerous, getting a few balls into the box, but no one's getting onto the end of him. And just in general with Scottish football, it's been a bit of an interesting week. Aberdeen's captain, Graham Shinney, is currently suspended for 4 games. And Aberdeen, they appealed to the Scottish FA to have that ban overturned, but it was rejected and thrown out. And there's been an uproar from the fans and the club, and also, interestingly, from Michael Beale, the Rangers manager, who's agreed with Aberdeen that the red card shouldn't have stood. But that rivalry is well and truly back on today. There's a few tackles. They've put aside that friendliness they had in midweek to throw in a few tackles, and hopefully a lively game here. But still, 8 minutes gone. It's Aberdeen 0, Rangers 0.
Still goalless there. Let's just check in now at Wembley Stadium for news of that FA Cup semi-final. Brighton against Manchester United. Who's making the early running in this game? As we cross over to Andrew Bonacore.
It's a really good start from Brighton. They seem the more settled. They've found their rhythm immediately. United seem quite happy to let them have the ball and try and hit on the counter. A couple of minutes ago, we had a foul on Mitoma on the edge of the box. Free kick was taken by McAllister. It was headed for the top corner, but De Gea just managed to get a fingertip to it and get the ball out for a corner. But United definitely have not found any kind of pattern to their play. And so far in the early opening 8 minutes, it's Brighton who are dictating the style of play. It's not all Brighton so far, but they are certainly on top. But from Wembley Stadium, it's still Brighton and Hove Albion 0, Manchester United 0.
And Andrew, as we know, Brighton have won the last 2 meetings between the clubs. 2-1 at Old Trafford on that opening day of the season. 4-0 at home last season. But of course, this afternoon, it's at Wembley, and everything that goes with playing in an FA Cup semi-finals, a completely different occasion. Do you think that has an impact on the Brighton players' mindset this afternoon?
You know what? I think it has, but it seems to have had a really positive one. They don't look like they're overawed or like they feel that they are playing above themselves. They look like they deserve to be there. They're looking around them and thinking, this is our stage now. This is where we are now, thanks to the season that we've had and the progress that we've made in the tournament. This is the right stage for us. They have settled so quickly and so easily into their flowing passing rhythm. A couple of decent attacks from them already. They just don't look like there's no sense of stage fright, if you know what I mean. They look like this is where they were born to play. They've started very, very strongly.
So Brighton starting strongly in that game, but still currently goalless in that FA Cup semi-final. It is Brighton 0, Manchester United 0. You're listening to Football Live here on Brilla FM. In about 10 minutes' time or so, we'll be crossing over once again to Tony and the crew in Nigeria for all of your social media comments. That'll be in about 10 minutes' time or so. If you weren't aware, from the 2 Premier League matches that took place earlier on this afternoon, 11 goals from 2 games in the Premier League. Quite incredible. Newcastle 6, Tottenham 1 is how it finished at St James's Park, with Newcastle scoring 5 goals in the first 20 minutes. Absolutely incredible. Jacob Murphy with a couple, Alexander Isak with a couple, Joe Linton on the score sheet as well. Tottenham pulling one back through Harry Kane 4 minutes after the break, but Callum Wilson hitting Tottenham for 6 with a goal in the 67th minute to cement Newcastle's position in the top 4. Surely they're going to be qualifying for the Champions League this season. And of course, in the other Premier League match that took place earlier on today, ended Bournemouth 0, West Ham 4 in that relegation battle. West Ham, well, it's pretty much all over in that game by half-time as well, with West Ham going into the interval with a 3-0 lead, courtesy of goals from Mikel Antonio, Lucas Paquetá and Declan Rice as well. And they added to that in the second half with a 4th goal from Pablo Fornells. That's how it ended at the Vitality Stadium. Bournemouth 0, West Ham 4. Let's just give you some other final scores from earlier on today around Europe in the Dutch Eredivisie. Twente 3, Sparta Rotterdam 3. That was a final score. Go Ahead Eagles 2, Sittard 0, PSV 3, Ajax 0. And of course, the latest in our featured match, Feyenoord leading Utrecht by a goal to 0. In the German Bundesliga, Freiburg 4, Schalke 0 is how it ended there. You heard it all unravel here on Football Live. It's still currently goalless between Leverkusen and Leipzig, with about 15 minutes gone there. We'll be crossing over to Richard Freckleton for any goal news in that game. Elsewhere, final scores to give you in Italian Serie A: Empoli 0, Inter 3, Monza 3, Fiorentina 2. Monza coming back from 2 goals down there. And Udinese 3, Cremonese 0. Isaac's success on the score sheet this afternoon for Udinese. In Spanish La Liga, Elche 0, Valencia 2 is a final score. Barcelona are still leading Atletico Madrid by a goal to 0, with Ferran Torres scoring just before the interval there. So Barcelona, of course, going into that game top of the table, looking to extend their lead this evening. That's the latest score, with about 20 minutes or so of that game remaining. In the Women's Champions League, of course, semi-final first leg, it ended Wolfsburg 2, Arsenal 2 at the Wolfsburg Arena. A brilliant comeback from Arsenal, having been 2 goals down in that game. Some latest scores to give you from the Nigerian Premier League. Currently, Enyimba 0, Remo Stars 1, 6 minutes remaining in that game. Doma United 0, Bayelsa United 0, it's Niger 0, Abia Warriors 0, Plateau 1, Nasarawa 0, Shooting Stars 1, Gombe 0, and Sunshine Stars 1, Lobe Stars 0. All of those matches, bar Enyimba against Remo Stars, approaching half-time there. So you are up to date with all of the latest scores from around Europe and beyond here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Let's head back to Wembley Stadium for an update. Brighton against Manchester United. Andrew Bonacore.
Good chance for Brighton, and Ciso found space on the edge of the United box. He tried a looping volley past De Gea, but he got his shot all wrong. But great signs for Brighton, already finding space in and around the United box and creating chances. United themselves did go close. Their first attempt on goal, well saved by Sanchez, but they're really struggling to get any kind of passing game together. They're going to need the likes of Rashford and Anthony to create something. But so far, Brighton are defending resolutely, but you never know. As Brighton sense that United are there for the taking, they may open up themselves at the back. But it's still Brighton 0, Man United 0.
Let's head back to Pittodrie. Action, of course, in the Scottish Premiership on Football Live this afternoon. Aberdeen against Rangers. Here's Leon Jones with an update.
Yeah, dangerous few minutes there from Rangers. It was a first Tavernier cross, headed down by Fashion Sakala, and then Morelos, he did a bit of a juggle and then volleyed it, and it was blocked on the line by Leighton Clarkson brilliantly. But then it fell to Lundstrom, and he rebounded it just over the bar. And then not long after that, Raskin played a beautiful through ball to Fashion Sakala. He was one-on-one with the goalkeeper, but Roos, he stood up and saved it well with his feet. But a dangerous few minutes there from Rangers, and they really should have scored. But 16 minutes gone here. It's Aberdeen 0, Rangers 0.
So still goalless then at Pajodri as we head back to all the action taking place at the Bayer Arena in our featured match in the German Bundesliga. Leverkusen against Leipzig. Richard Freckleton.
Yes, it's Bayer Leverkusen 0, Leipzig 0. The game has settled down somewhat for Bayer Leverkusen. They were caught very slow out the tracks by Leipzig, who started very fast, but now it's even Steven, I would say, with possession. And the goalkeepers, since you were last year, have not been troubled at all. So it's just trying to settle into a pattern this particular game. The run that Bayer Leverkusen have been on, it shows that they are very difficult to actually break down and lose a game. As I said, they've got a fantastic record, and they're in better form than Leipzig themselves. But maybe the cobwebs have gone away from Thursday night's exploits. But at this particular moment, it's still Bayer Leverkusen 0, Leipzig 0.
We are about 12 minutes away from kick-off in our featured match in Italian Serie A. Milan against Lecce at the San Siro. Of course, we'll give you updates throughout the course of that game here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Later on this evening, Juventus against Napoli. What a match that should be at the top of the table. Napoli, of course, champions elect, 14 points clear at the top of the table. Surely they can't be caught. Of course, they had the disappointment of going out to Milan in the Champions League quarter-finals in midweek. Juventus, of course, back in third now, having that 15-point deduction reversed pending further investigation. A lot of controversy around that. We'll be discussing that with Matt Temporal a little bit later on. And incidentally, next weekend, Milan face Roma in that crucial encounter at the Stadio Olimpico between those two sides. Always a tasty affair. That's next weekend. And we may be covering that, I think, possibly here on Football Live. Plenty of action, of course, here on Football Live next weekend, but plenty of action in the Premier League during the week as well, of course. And what a week it should be. The standout fixture, it's quite simply got to be possibly the title decider, hasn't it? On Wednesday evening as Manchester City take on Arsenal at the Etihad. What a game that could be. As I said, it could determine which way the Premier League title swings this season. Arsenal just starting to get really nervy, aren't they, in with recent performances. Manchester City, on the other hand, really motoring at the moment. That kicks off at 9 p.m. on Wednesday evening. As I said, plenty of other matches taking place in the Premier League in midweek. On Tuesday evening, Wolves against Crystal Palace, Aston Villa at home to Fulham, Leeds taking on Leicester. What a crucial relegation battle that is. And then on the Wednesday, Nottingham Forest in dire straits at the moment, just 3 points from their last 11 matches in the Premier League, take on today's FA Cup semi-final finalist Brighton at the City Ground. Chelsea against Brentford in an all-West London affair. West Ham at home to Liverpool as well. And then on Thursday evening, Everton taking on Newcastle, Southampton against Bournemouth, and Tottenham against Manchester United. Plenty of action taking place during the course of the week in the Premier League. You listen to Football Live here on Brilla FM. Let's just check back in now with Leon Jones, who's watching Aberdeen against Rangers, and an opportunity for the visitors in that game for Leon to tell us about.
Yeah, another opportunity. It's fallen to Fashion Sakala. He's had 2 in this game already. It's another good save by Roos, but he's got to strike the ball better. He's mishit it a little bit. He's tried to curl it with his right foot, but instead he's hit it down the middle of the goal. Easy save for Roos. And it's still goalless here at Pataudry, but Rangers are looking really, really dangerous.
Meanwhile, in our feature match in the Dutch Eredivisie, they're into the second half in that game, and a few half-time substitutions that have been made, I believe. Jordan Nicoli.
Yes, there's been a change for Feyenoord. Surprisingly, the goal scorer Szymanski has come off. He has come off with Danilo. Maybe there's an injury to Szymanski. Don't see why he would come off after scoring that goal. But it's an attacking change for Feyenoord. They now have two strikers up front in Danilo and Gimenez. So Feyenoord looking to push and add to their one goal. But as the second half has just started, it's Feyenoord 1, Utrecht 0.
That's it from us for the moment. We're going to be taking a little pause now as we head back to Tony and the team in Nigeria for all of your social media comments on all the action that's taken place this weekend. So much to talk about, Tony. You are listening to Football Live on Brila FM, powered by NairaBet, with Chris Baldwin. Yes, welcome back. This is Football Live. Thanks to our colleagues in Nigeria. Goal news to tell you about from our feature match in the Dutch Eredivisie.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
And it's a big goal for Feyenoord as well, as they look to tighten their grip at the top of the Dutch Eredivisie. They now lead against Utrecht by 2-0. Santiago Thomas Jimenez has scored the second goal there for Feyenoord. We'll be over to Jordan Coley very, very shortly for details of that second goal for Feyenoord. First of all, let's head back to Wembley Stadium for an update. Brighton against Manchester United, and some concern around Bruno Fernandes. Andrew Bonacore.
Yeah, the United captain went down, no challenge, but he seemed to get his studs stuck in the turf. He let out a big old scream and stayed down for a couple of minutes. He was treated, but despite him initially looking for a substitute to take his place, he looks like he's going to try and run it off. Just a couple of minutes before that, though, Brighton's Solly March did exactly the same thing. Seemed to tweak his ankle and looked like he might have to be replaced. But both players so far trying to run off their injuries. United, I'd say, starting to have a bit more impact. Ten Hag has used the injury breaks to have a few words with Anthony to try and get him more into the game. So those injuries have slowed things down. But as we approach the half-hour mark, it's still Brighton 0, Manchester United 0.
Still goalless then at Wembley Stadium. The prize, of course, an FA Cup final appearance against Manchester City on Saturday, the 3rd of June. Let's get news of that second goal for Feyenoord against Utrecht. Jordan Coley.
Massive goal for Feyenoord. There's a massive goal in the title race, and it's Jimenez who scores it. Utrecht were having a bit of possession in their own half, and then they were tackled on the ball by Idrissi. Idrissi then played in the ball into Jimenez, and it was a good 1-2 between the two of them. And then Idrissi's shot was well saved by Barkas, but Jimenez reacted first and headed it into the empty net. That's his 12th goal of the season, and that is a goal that Feyenoord really needed in this match, because 1-0 wasn't cutting it. But now they are 2 goals to the good. You would think that the 3 points should be there for them, and they can extend their gap at the top of the table and push towards their 16th championship in their history. So it's Feyenoord 2, Utrecht 0.
Yeah, really crucial goal there for Feyenoord in their fight for the Dutch Eredivisie title this season. Our featured match in the Scottish Premiership is at Pittodrie. Aberdeen against Rangers. Who looks more likely to open their account in this game? Leon Jones.
Well, that's easy. It's Rangers. And even though I'm watching a football game, it feels like I'm watching the fashion show, because Fashion Sakala is all over Aberdeen here. He was in the box, and the ball fell to him, and he smashed it against the left-hand side of the post. And it's really unlucky for Sakala. He found a bit of space for himself, and it was a great chance, but he's still not scored. He's had about 3 or 4 big chances in this one, and if anyone's going to score for Rangers, it looks like it's going to be Sakala. But half an hour gone here at Pittodrie. It's Aberdeen 0, Rangers 0.
So let's just recap the latest scores that we have for you for the matches currently in progress here on Football Live in that FA Cup semi-final. They've just passed the half-hour mark. It remains goalless. Brighton 0, Manchester United 0. As you heard there in the Scottish Premiership, still goalless at Pittodrie. Aberdeen against Rangers. Feyenoord 2-0 up at home to Utrecht as they approach the hour mark in that game in the Dutch Eredivisie. In the German Bundesliga, let's get an update, in fact, on that match. Leverkusen against Leipzig as we rejoin Richard Freckleton at the Bay Arena. Richard.
Yes, Chris, it's still 0-0 here between Bayer Leverkusen and Leipzig, but my goodness, what a counter-attack I just saw from a corner. There was a corner from Leipzig, which was intercepted, and I've never seen anything like this in quite some time. They had Frimpong on the halfway line, the Bayer Leverkusen striker, and they supported him ever so quickly after they did that interception. They were like the flying eagles. I mean, there was so much support in such a quick space of time. And the pass from Bakker, just on the wing inside the box, was the last thing that was missing. The pass simply wasn't good enough, or else it would have been a tap-in for Frimpong. That was the most exciting thing I've seen so far from Bayer Leverkusen, who tactically it seems that Alonso has switched something which has settled them down well. And there's nothing happening too much from Leipzig attacking-wise. A speculative shot from 20 yards from Olmo, which was easy for the goalkeeper to save. But here we are with 32 minutes gone, and the score still remains Bayer Leverkusen 0, Leipzig 0.
Still goalless then at the Bay Arena. A really big game for both of those sides. Of course, Leipzig looking to jump back into the top 4 positions. As it stands, they are in fact in full spot at the moment. Of course, Freiburg beating Schalke earlier on in the Bundesliga convincingly by 4-0 to move into 3rd place in the Bundesliga table as it hots up for those Champions League spots come the end of the season. Elsewhere, latest scores to give you in Spanish La Liga, approaching full time. Barcelona still leading Atletico Madrid by 1-0. That goal coming just before half time, scored by Ferran Torres after being set up by Rafinha. So as it stands at the moment, Barcelona will move to create an 11-point gap at the top of the table once again. Real, of course, were in action last night, beating Celta Vigo by 2-0. But at the moment, Barcelona heading towards all 3 points and moving well clear again at the top of the La Liga table. Let's head back to Wembley Stadium. There's been an opportunity, I think, for the Seagulls in that game for Andrew Bonacore to tell us about.
Yes, now that those injuries are out of the way, the game has picked up again, and it's Brighton who've picked up from where they left off. The United defence are really getting into quite a panic when Mitoma is on the ball. He squared the ball along the edge of the United penalty to Enciso, who fired low and wide. Brighton are getting closer. United really struggling to handle the runs of Mitoma in particular. Some of his running and running in the channels is really fun to watch. He's getting in behind the United defence really whenever he wants to. All he needs is for a blue and white striped teammate to find him in a dangerous area, and United could find themselves a goal down. So still, Brighton are on top. United trying to get into the game, but it's still Brighton 0, Man United 0.
Just a word on Karu Mitoma, Andrew, because quite simply, I mean, what an incredible impact he has had on the Premier League this season.
He's just wonderful to watch, and I think everyone's enjoyed him, but you just worry a little bit whether Brighton will be able to keep hold of him. But you know, he's obviously ambitious, but I just wonder whether he would have any interest in leaving Brighton at all. It's an adventure for him to be in the UK. He's playing in a top 10 Premier League team. You know, how much higher is he going to go in his second season? Maybe he wants to go on that adventure with the Seagulls, but he's just so enjoyable to watch, and it would be wonderful playing with him because he looks for little bits of space, and he creates pockets of space in and around the opposing defence. And I just think if you're a forward player, you just got to try and find a little bit of space in the box, and you know that he's going to somehow manage to carve the ball out for you. But he doesn't only create chances, he scores, you know, wonderfully creative and sometimes spectacular goals. So he's been a breath of fresh air in the Premier League this season.
He certainly is. Love watching Karu Mitoma just running at defenders. That's what it's all about. But it's still currently goalless at Wembley Stadium. Brighton 0, Manchester United 0. Let's head back to our featured match in the German Bundesliga. Bayer Leverkusen against Leipzig. And the woodwork's been rattled. Richard Freckleton.
That's right, Chris. It still remains, however, Bayer Leverkusen 0, Leipzig 0. But a speculative shot from the defender of Bayer Leverkusen, Hincapi, almost really caused a lot of blushes for the Leipzig goalkeeper, Blazwicz. It's a shot that he really should have covered himself and just tapped over the bar, but he just left it, thinking that it was just gonna go over the bar, but it must have dipped somewhat, and it rattled the bar. But this shot was from about 30 yards out, a beautiful left foot strike that certainly would have caused some blushes for Leipzig and their goalkeeper, Blazwicz. But with 37 minutes on the clock, it's still remaining Bayer Leverkusen 0, Leipzig 0.
Still goalless then at the Bay Arena. This is Football Live here on Brilla FM. We're well inside the final hour of the show. We're going to cross over now to John Kane, who has all the latest betting news for us.
The very latest in-play odds with NairaBet.
Yes, the latest betting odds from NairaBet. Of course, all these prices are from NairaBet website as we speak, and they're all subject to change. Just go to the Brighton Manchester United game. Brighton are favourites to win the game. It's 37 minutes gone, still 0-0. However, Brighton are 2.30, just gone up 2.30. In fact, the draw is 3.10, and the Manchester United away win is 3.30. Milan are also playing. 7 minutes gone, still 0-0 as well in that game in San Siro. It's Milan who has gone down to 1.53. The draw is 3.80, and it's just gone up for Lecce to 7.50. So I'm sure Matt Tempera will tell us if Milan are justified with that price at the moment. German Bundesliga, 38 minutes gone, still 0-0 there as well. We're still waiting for goals this afternoon. Bayer Leverkusen are 3.25 for the win. The draw is 2.88, and it's 2.60 for Leipzig away win. It's nearly half time at the French league. In fact, it's been suspended, the German Bundesliga, because Bayern have just scored. We'll be going back to Chris Baldwin very, very shortly in the news of that goal. The French League, it's still 0-0 there. Montpellier are 4.20 for the win. The draw is 2.40, and an away win for Rennes is 2.50. As for the Scottish Premiership, 38 minutes gone, again, it's still 0-0. Aberdeen at home are 6.50 for the win. It's gone down for the draw to 3.20. And finally, an away win for Rangers is 1.67. And of course, all these odds are subject to change.
Thanks very much, John. That's John Kane with all the latest betting news there. Indeed, confirmation of a opening goal at the Bay Arena.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
And Adam Losek has opened the account for Leverkusen. They lead Leipzig by 1-0 as they approach half-time in that game. Richard Freckleton will be giving us all the news of that goal for the hosts very, very shortly. But let's head back to Wembley Stadium first of all for that FA Cup semi-final. Brighton against Manchester United. We've had our first booking in the game, and it's a significant one at that. Andrew Bonacore.
Absolutely, it's the Brazilian Casemiro booked for Manchester United. He wasn't content with just holding on to Argentinian Alexis McAllister. He also decided to bring him down from behind. Of course, he complained and had a good moan at the referee, but it was a clear yellow, so he now needs to be careful and tread very carefully to avoid a third red of the season for Casemiro. So we're just winding down the last 5 minutes to half-time. First booking of the game for Casemiro, and it's still Brighton 0, Manchester United 0.
Let's get news of that goal for Leverkusen against Leipzig. Richard Freckleton.
Yes, it's Bayer Leverkusen 1, Leipzig 0, and what a beautiful goal. What a worked goal it was. I mean, a cross coming in, I do believe it was from Diaby, and slotted it away perfectly by Leipzig. Fantastic goal in the 6-yard box, and they've certainly settled down, haven't they? I've said before that it's going to be very hard to break them down because they're on a fantastic run, and they've shown exactly what they can do in the last 7 games. Very difficult to beat them, I would say. And with 41 minutes on the clock, it's now Bayer Leverkusen 1, Leipzig 0.
Back to Pittodrie we go. Let's get an update on Aberdeen against Rangers in the Scottish Premiership. Leon Jones.
It's taken 40 minutes, but Aberdeen have got their first shot on target, and it came from a counter-attack. It was poor play from John Lundstrom in the midfield. He lost it, and then it was a 3-on-1 counter-attack for Aberdeen, and the final chance fell to Duck up front, but his strike was saved well by McGregor out for a corner, and then McGregor again claimed it at the corner, so the danger's been cleared for Rangers now. Aberdeen, they've really, that was their first opportunity in this game. They've not been in it at all. If you look at the passes completed, they've completed 36 passes, while Rangers have completed 281. It's a very one-sided game here in Pittodrie, and Aberdeen they need to improve if they're going to keep this winning run going. But 5 minutes to half time, it's Aberdeen 0, Rangers 0.
Our Feyenoord still closing in on all 3 points at the Stadium Feyenoord in our featured match in the Dutch Eredivisie. Here's Jordan Nicoli.
Yeah, the match should have been game over. I cannot believe the ball did not go in the back of the net. And Danilo will be thinking the same thing. It was a great move on the left-hand side, and Idrissi whipped in a beautiful cross for Danilo, the substitute. And Danilo had the goal gaping, and somehow he put it in the wrong place, exactly where the goalkeeper was. He just could have picked either side, but he hit it straight down the middle, and it was an easy save for Barkas. A real sitter missed by Danilo. It was inside the 6-yard box. It really should be 3-0. Utrecht have made a change. The top goal scorer of the Dutch league, De Vikas, has come off for Bas Dost. De Vikas has been excellent this season, but he just has not shown up today. So Utrecht will be hoping to put in some balls into the box for the tall striker, Bas Dost, as they push to try and get something from this game. But as it stands, with almost 70 minutes gone, it's Feyenoord 2, Utrecht 0.
Well, of course, there was a disappointment for Feyenoord, wasn't there, in midweek in their Europa League quarter-final when they lost out to Roma. But it looks as though they will put that defeat behind them this afternoon and open up that big gap at the top of the Dutch Eredivisie table once again. You're listening to Football Live here on Brilla FM. Let's just check in now with Matt Temporal, who's watching the match between Milan and Lecce for an update on that game.
Yeah, well, we're approaching the 15-minute mark here at the San Siro, and not much action to speak of, to be honest. I do have to say that the atmosphere inside the stadium is quite a celebratory one, which is not surprising considering the team have reached the last 4 of the Champions League since the last time they won it. So, yeah, it's quite a good atmosphere, but at the minute, Milan just passing it around, easy, happy to keep possession. At the moment, though, it's still Milan 0.
I'm just looking at the top of the table, Matt, in Serie A. It's getting really congested, isn't it? Obviously, Napoli running away with it. But for those final spots in the Champions League, any one of about 5 teams really involved in that. But of course, the real talking point this weekend is the reversal of that points deduction for Juventus prior to further investigation taking place, of course. It's really shaken up the table again, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. It's an interesting dynamic, this game. Do Milan put all their eggs in one basket and just hope to win the Champions League? Because at the moment, that looks like their best bet of getting Champions League football next season.
We shall wait and see. We'll be back with Matt Temporal if there's any further developments in that game. I can tell you, in fact, that we have penalty news in that match, Milan against Lecce. It's a penalty for Milan, I'm understanding. So we'll bring you news of that very, very shortly here on Football Live. It's gone to VAR. So further news to follow on that. But VAR looking into a penalty decision. They're still checking it at the moment, where, of course, at the moment it remains Milan 0, Lecce 0. A good time to head back to Wembley Stadium for an update on Brighton against Manchester United as we close in on half-time there. Andrew Bonacore.
Good chance for United. It's Bruno Fernandes, who seems fine after he was treated for an ankle tweak. He burst into the Seagulls box into the right-hand side and smashed his shot just about 1.5 foot wide of Sanchez's right-hand post. So that's the closest that United have come so far. And after struggling to kind of exert any kind of composure or even have some impact from their approach to the game, United are starting to find a little bit of space. So they'll actually go into half-time relatively comfortable. Brighton have looked good, but they haven't created any goal-scoring opportunity that you would really say was a great chance. So you just wonder whether Brighton are about to be taught a lesson in the second half about taking your chances when you're dominant. 63% possession for the Seagulls, 37% for United. But looks like they're going to go in at half-time with the scores Brighton 0, Man United 0.
I can tell you that penalty has not been given in the match between Milan and Lecce. Let's hear all about it now from Matt Temporal.
Yeah, well, initially the referee did give the penalty. It was Milan left-back Theo Hernandez and captain for the day who was tackled in the box by the Lecce centre-half, Baschirotto. The referee gave the penalty, and then I think the debate was whether or not the contact was initiated by Hernandez or Baschirotto. And I think in the end, the referee has decided that it was in fact Hernandez that forced his way into Baschirotto and then went over, and therefore the penalty was not given. So it's still 0-0 here at the San Siro.
So drama then at the San Siro, but the penalty not given. It remains goalless. Milan against Lecce in Spanish La Liga. I can confirm that Barcelona have secured all 3 points. They've beaten Atletico Madrid this afternoon by 1-0. The goal just before half-time from Ferran Torres. So just looking at the standings once again in La Liga, Barcelona 11 points clear at the top of the table on 76 points, having been defeated just twice this season. Real Madrid on 65 points in second spot, followed by Atletico Madrid 5 points further back on 60, and Real Sociedad on 54 points, occupying that 4th spot in the La Liga table at the moment. So you're up to date with all things La Liga. There was another result from earlier on today with Valencia winning 2-0 at Elche. A half-time whistle has blown at the Bayer Arena by Leverkusen against Leipzig. For a half-time report, here's Richard Freckleton.
Yes, half-time here. It's Bayer Leverkusen 1 and it's Leipzig 0. Certainly, I mean, they started very well, Leipzig. They looked the fresher of the two teams for obvious reasons, with Bayer Leverkusen having played on Thursday, and Werner had an early chance, which was saved well by the goalkeeper. But after a tweak, I would say, tactically, by Xabi Alonso, they settled down, and they looked as the game went on, they looked more threatening. And they had a speculative 30-yard shot from the defender, Hincapi, that hit the bar, and that must have been a warning to Leipzig, but they didn't heed that warning, and not too much later, they scored their goal, Bayer Leverkusen. Beautiful play in which there was a cutback from the right-hand side by Diaby into Hlozek, who finished superbly, giving the keeper absolutely no chance whatsoever. So that certainly has shocked and been a setback for Leipzig. They've got some work to do to get back into this game. But as I speak, it's half-time, and it's Bayer Leverkusen 1, Leipzig 0.
0-0 then in that match. Half-time whistle has also gone at Wembley Stadium in the FA Cup semi-final. Let's just check back in now with Andrew Bonacore.
0-0 here at Wembley. Brighton have definitely been the better side, creating chances for Enciso and Mitoma. Their passing has been more crisp and effective so far. And United at times have found it hard to get on the ball. But in the last 3 minutes of the half, good chances for United through Fernandes, Eriksen and Martial. So I wonder if Brighton will be punished for not scoring while heavily dominating possession. Casemiro was booked on 35 minutes, so he'll need to be careful for the rest of the game if he's to avoid a third red card. But words for Ten Hag to have with his United players at half-time. They're not out of it, but they're certainly not on top. De Zerbi will be more pleased of the two managers, but it remains at half-time. Brighton 0, Manchester United 0.
So that FA Cup semi-final finally balanced at the moment. The half-time whistle has also blown at Pittodrie, Aberdeen against Rangers. Leon Jones.
Yeah, half-time here, and it's Aberdeen 0, Rangers 0. And it's been a fairly positive first half for Rangers. Fashion Scala, he's had most of the chances for them, the best of which was struck against the left-hand post. And then another big chance for Rangers was when Alfredo Morelos volleyed it, and it was blocked off the line by Leighton Clarkson, who's on loan from Liverpool. And then after that, I mean, it was all Rangers really, but then the last couple of minutes, Aberdeen, they ended the half positively. It was Ramadani's chance, saved by McGregor, and then a little bit later on, Duncan's chance, but that just went wide. Aberdeen, I think they'll be happy that they're not losing, and Rangers, they might kick themselves for not scoring in that first half, but going into the second half, Aberdeen, they're still in with a chance of picking up a 7th consecutive win, whilst Rangers, they can't afford to drop points today because that'll give Celtic a massive, massive boost in the title race. Half time here at Pittodrie, it's Aberdeen 0, Rangers 0.
So a quick recap of the latest scores in our featured matches at half-time in the FA Cup semi-final. Brighton 0, Manchester United 0. Half-time there at Pittodrie, as you heard, goalless between Aberdeen and Rangers. Elsewhere, it is Feyenoord 2, Utrecht 0. That's the latest score. Bayer Leverkusen are 1-0 up, of course, at home to Leipzig, and it's currently goalless between Milan and Lecce in Italian Serie A. You are listening to Football Live.
4 hours of football every Saturday and Sunday on Brilla FM with Football Live.
But it always starts with us.
All the key action from around Europe's top leagues.
Wow. Just wow.
Will the Serie A top scorer strike again? After his stoppage time consolation goal against Milan in the Champions League semi-final, Victor Osimhen is back playing in Italy later on this afternoon when Napoli take on Juventus in Turin. The Nigerian superstar has 21 goals in the league so far, and for every goal he scores in this match, our partners at NairaBet will give you a 500 Naira free bet. So if he scores a hat-trick, you will have 1,500 Naira to play with. Get involved and visit www.nairabet.com/bonus for more info. Minimum acca stake required is 500 Naira. 18 plus only. Please gamble responsibly.
Liverpool take on Tottenham Hotspur. And Fulham up against Manchester City in the Premier League. Next Sunday. Exclusive coverage on Football Live. You are listening to Football Live on Brilla FM, powered by NairaBet. Have your say on today's action and interact with Brilla FM on Twitter at Brilla FM 889, on Facebook at 889 Brilla FM, and on Instagram, Brilla FM 889.
It is drama you will not want to miss.
Well, against all the odds, Bournemouth are taking the lead and not a single shot on target up to this point.
Yeah, it was a James Ward-Prowse classic. He just kills it beautifully.
Well, it's been absolute chaos.
Yes, Josh. Football's a cruel game. You can have all the possession you want, but if you don't put the ball at the back of the net.
It was again Kane and Son, like the good old days.
But this show never disappoints.
Yes, well, it's Brentford 0, Crystal Palace 1 here, and it's Eredivisie who's got the goal.
Oh my word, Josh. I cannot believe how Phil Foden has not made this 2-0.
Yes, Barry, it's a second goal for Borussia Dortmund, and the Deutschschwarz are running away with it now.
Today's show is powered by Hollandia and Chivita. And welcome back. This is Football Live here on Brilla FM, right the way through with you until 7 o'clock this evening. Plenty to come between now and then. Further goal news in our featured match between Feyenoord and Utrecht.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
And the league leaders have extended their lead still further. Ali Reza Jahanbakhsh has added a third there. It's now Feyenoord 3, Utrecht 0. We'll be getting an update on that game and that goal, that third goal for Feyenoord, very shortly here on Football Live from our reporter, Jordan Okoli. Of course, the second halves will be getting underway soon. Brighton against Manchester United in that FA Cup semi-final. Goalless there. Goalless too between Aberdeen and Rangers at Pittodrie in the Scottish Premiership as well. We'll be getting further updates as well from our match between Leverkusen and Leipzig in the German Bundesliga 2. So plenty to look forward to between now and 7 o'clock here on Football Live on Brilla FM. In fact, that goal, that third goal at the Stadion Feyenoord, just being looked into by VAR. So confirmation very, very shortly as to whether that will count. But VAR just taking a look at that. In fact, I can tell it's been given. So Feyenoord 3, Utrecht 0 is the latest score there with about 6.5 minutes or so remaining in that game. Let's hear all about it now from Jordan Okoli.
What a goal it was. What a goal for Jahanbash. A fantastic goal. He curled it into the top corner. Nothing Barkes could do about it. It was an amazing goal. The goal of the game so far. Kochu was the person that played it into him after a bit of a scramble just outside of the Utrecht box. And it fell kindly for Jahanbash, but the finish is something that's going to be replayed all weekend, especially if you're a Feyenoord fan. A fantastic strike into the top corner, and it puts the cherry on top of the cake for what's been a great performance from Feyenoord. A great performance, especially in the second half. Only 4 games left, and they may be the title winners. Let's watch this space. But as things stand, it's Feyenoord 3, Utrecht 0.
Let's head back to the San Siro for an update on Milan against Lecce. Matt Temporal.
Yes, well, as Milan were desperate to get a penalty at one end, they're actually lucky to still be at 0-0 as Lecce missed a great chance just a few minutes later. It was actually number 22, Lamek Banda, who comes in the starting lineup today. He started very well. The move started with a seemingly hopeful ball into the box by the Lecce fullback Valentin Gandre. It seemingly missed every single Milan defender and found its way to the back post. And Banda couldn't have been more than 5 yards out, and he heads it straight at Mike Magnan. He could have headed it anywhere else, and it would be 1-0 to Lecce. But it goes down as a save to Magnan, and it's still Milan 0, Lecce 0.
Still goalless there. Just a reminder, of course, that kicking off later on this evening in an 8:45 kickoff. Juventus host Napoli. The champions-elect Victor Osimhen, of course, will be in action in that game. That kicks off at 8:45 this evening in Italian Serie A. We'll be back around the grounds again very, very shortly here on Football Live. The second halves are just about to get underway. Brighton against Manchester United in that FA Cup semi-final. Who will meet Manchester City in the final on Saturday, the 3rd of June? They, of course, dispatched Sheffield United very comfortably yesterday with that Riyad Mahrez hat-trick, winning 3-0. As for that semi-final this afternoon between Brighton and Manchester United, we always knew it was going to be a very tight affair. That's the way it is at the moment. Of course, goalless at the break. You just get the impression, you just sense maybe that could go all the way. Just getting news from the fallout of the Premier League matches that took place earlier on today, in case you weren't aware, but I'm sure you are. Newcastle thrashed Tottenham, hitting them for 6 in a 6-1 victory at St James's Park. Reports coming out that Hugo Lloris refused to come out for the second half after a bust-up in the dressing room. We'll see if there's any further developments on that, but it's all going very, very wrong for the North London club at the moment. Hammered by 6-1 at Newcastle this afternoon in a match, of course, which was really all about that 4th spot in the Premier League, and Tottenham pretty much handing it on a plate now to Newcastle. It's difficult to see how they can come back from that. Just looking at the Premier League table as it stands at the moment, of course, Arsenal at the top of the table on 75 points, 5 points clear of Manchester City, who they meet at the Etihad, of course, on Wednesday night in that potential title decider. Really looking forward to that. Newcastle now up to 3rd on 59 points on goal difference from Manchester United, and then 6 points further back now, Tottenham. Still plenty to play for, but they're certainly not in a good run of form at the moment, are they? Losing 6-1 today. And the other Premier League match that took place, of course, West Ham pretty much may have secured their Premier League status this season with a very convincing 4-0 win at Bournemouth. It takes West Ham up to 13th spot in the table on 34 points. Bournemouth remain on 33 points in 15th place, but they're only 5 points clear of Everton, who are, of course, in 18th spot in the table. Southampton still propping up the table on 24 points. And then Nottingham Forest occupying the other relegation spot at the moment on 27 points. Further goal news to tell you about in the Dutch Eredivisie.
The goals,
Powered by NairaBet.
Bastos has pulled one back for Utrecht, who now trail at Feyenoord by 3-1. We'll hear all about that goal very shortly from our reporter Jordan Nicoli here on Football Live on Brilla FM. I think we'll just give you the latest scores from the Nigerian Premier League. Of course, plenty of action taking place there today. Earlier on today ended Enyimba 1, Remo Stars 1. Other latest scores to give you. Doma United 1, Bayelsa United 0. About 20 minutes remaining in that game. Plateau 1, Nasarawa 0. Shooting Stars leading Gombe by 3-0. Sunshine Stars still a goal up at home to Lobby Stars. And it's currently goalless between Niger and Abia Warriors. They're into the 6th minute of the second half in that game. So you're up to date with all matters around the Nigerian Premier League. Let's head back to the match at the Stadium Feyenoord. News of that goal for Utrecht. Here's Jordan Nicoli.
Yes, the goal came from Bastos. Maybe too little too late, but it was a fantastic goal, I have to say. I was saying that goal of the game, maybe it has gone to Jabanhash, but I believe Bastos might have to take it. It was a fantastic volley. Toomstra whipped it in from deep, and Bastos, we know he's an excellent finisher on the volley. First time, nothing the goalkeeper could do about it. Excellent finish. That's his 9th goal of the season. It's not going to mean much in terms of the effect on this game. However, it's good for him to build up his confidence and at least for Utrecht to get a goal in this game. But it's not going to affect things at the top of the table. Feyenoord will surely take the 3 points and will extend their gap as they push on for the title. But a fantastic goal. Feyenoord 3, Utrecht run.
Yeah, as Jordan was saying, a little too late there for Utrecht, of course, who are gunning for a European qualification spot this season. They're still pretty clear of Valwijk, who are in 8th spot, so they should achieve qualification for the Europa Conference League this season, or for the playoffs anyway. But trailing to Feyenoord by 3-1. Feyenoord, of course, will be 8 points clear again at the top of the Dutch Eredivisie this evening, after, of course, PSV beat Ajax earlier on today by 3-0 in that top of the table clash. Second half, I believe, is underway in our featured match in the German Bundesliga between Leverkusen and Leipzig. Let's get an update on the early salvos at the start of the second half from Football Live reporter Richard Freckleton.
Yes, it's started, and it's Bayer Leverkusen 1, Leipzig 0, and the manager of Leipzig, which is Marco Rose, has not hesitated at all into bringing on an early substitute, which is his striker, Nkunku, who has scored so far 12 goals this season. So he's beefed things up. He's looking for a little bit of support for Timo Werner to actually change things in this second half. Bayer Leverkusen remained the same. They came out of for the second half early, so no doubt there was a bit of a tongue lashing from the Leipzig manager, Mr. Marco Rose. But early stages of this second half, they're looking to both sides to get into a pattern of play. Nothing has happened so far, but I'm expecting there to be more action and possibly more goals, because definitely they were very much in the ascendancy at the end of that first half, were Bayer Leverkusen. So let's see what happens here, but so far it is Bayer Leverkusen 1, Leipzig 0.
Leverkusen then still a goal to the good on that great run, of course. 12 unbeaten matches in all competitions, through to the Europa League semis as well, of course, after beating Royal Union in midweek to get to their first European semi-final for over 20 years. And at the moment, leading Leipzig by 1-0. Any further developments in that game, you will hear them first here on Football Live on Brilla FM, as we head back to the San Siro now for an update. Milan against Lecce. Any sign of any goals coming in that game? Matt Temporal.
Not yet. Not a sign of any goals. No, it's Milan just struggling a little bit here to get going. which perhaps is understandable. You know, they had a very, very good midweek game against Napoli, but you know, you would expect more. They have made 4 changes. Are they just putting all their eggs in one basket and going for the Champions League? It certainly seems that way. You know, this actually has turned into a good chance for Lecce to get some points on the board and stretch a bit of a gap between them and the bottom 3. You know, Milan, some of their best players, Rafael Leao, struggling to get into the game. They've got a few injuries, so you know, maybe it's disrupted the rhythm of the side a little bit. At the moment, we are approaching half-time here at the San Siro, and it is Milan 0, Lecce 0.
Goal news at Pitodri.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
Great start to the second half for Aberdeen. They lead Rangers by a goal to 0. Liam Scales scoring early on in the second half in that game. Let's head over to Leon Jones now for news of that goal.
Wow. Liam Scales, he has put Aberdeen 1-0 up. What a goal. He has not meant this in the slightest. I'm sorry. There's no way he can claim it as he's meant it. He's crossed it from about 40 yards. He's just come into the Rangers half, and it looks like he's put a cross in, and it's beaten Alan McGregor. Wow. I have nothing to say about that one. If he's meant this, that is the goal of the season. Pitodri is erupted. Aberdeen 1, Rangers 0. What a start to the second half.
Leon, was that a good goal?
Wow.
Well, what a great start to the second half for Aberdeen. You've got to see that one. Aberdeen leading Rangers by a goal to 0. Thanks very much, Leon. Liam Scales breaking the deadlock in that game there. I think the second half is underway at Wembley Stadium in that FA Cup semi-final. Let's head back now to Andrew Bonacore.
Well, it's still 0-0 here, but United had a great final few minutes of the first half, and they've started the second half in a similar vein. No changes for either side at half-time, but United certainly coming out on the front foot. Brighton have had some decent play themselves, but Bruno Fernandes has been probably the pivotal player so far for United. We'll have to see what kind of impact he has on the second half. So far, the second half has started much more kind of end-to-end, so we'll see if we get some slightly more exciting opportunities in the final 45 minutes. But it's starting to feel a bit more like a cup tie. We're not just waiting for Brighton to score. We're seeing if United can get on top as well. But so far, it still remains Brighton 0, United 0.
Full-time whistle has gone at the Stadion Feyenoord. Feyenoord against Utrecht. Here's Jordan Okoli.
Yes, massive win for Feyenoord. Every match is a cup final leading up to the last game of the season for them. They opened the scoring through Szymanski, and then a goal from Jimenez, and then a third goal, maybe goal of the day, from Jahanbash, and then a goal from Bastos. Was just a consolation goal in the end, because it didn't stop Feyenoord from getting the 3 points. It was an impressive performance, honestly, from Feyenoord. 546 accurate passes they had in this match. 60% possession. It was complete domination. They could have got more goals if they wanted to be honest. But 3-1 is enough for Feyenoord to extend their gap above Ajax to 11 points and extend their gap above PSV to 8 points as they push for the Dutch league title. So it ends here at the De Kuip Stadium. Feyenoord 3, Utrecht 1.
Yeah, and it's 10 straight victories now for Feyenoord as they move 8 points clear again at the top of the Dutch Eredivisie, and they appear to be heading towards their first top flight title in 6 seasons, beating Utrecht by 3-1 this afternoon. Goal in Serie A.
The goals, powered by NairaBet.
Which way has the goal gone as we head over to Matt Temporal?
Yes, and it's 1-0 to AC Milan. Just as I said that AC Milan are struggling to get going, what do? They go and score. It's from a corner kick. Sandro Tonali takes it short. He receives the ball back, clips a fantastic ball to the back post, and Rafael Leao is there to tower in a header. He heads it back the way it came from, into the side netting. It's Milan 1, Lecce 0.
So Milan eventually finding the breakthrough there as we approach half-time at the San Siro in that game. Let's head back to Wembley Stadium for an update on Brighton against Manchester United. Andrew Bonacore.
Yeah, really interesting response from Brighton to United coming at them in the second half. They're actually trying to slow the game down a touch. They recognise that they're in some danger of United getting a few minutes of dominance. So they're really slowing things down, just walking around at the back and playing passes in between defenders. But then they try and hit the front runners with a fairly long ball. So they're certainly giving United something to worry about, because they're trying a different mix of approaches. And although United have been fairly one-dimensional, almost everything going through Bruno Fernandes, Brighton are really trying to mix things up. So it's a fascinating contest. You've got two very different styles, two very different types of manager, and they're trying to just look at what the other one is doing and respond. So there's always a danger in this kind of managerial face-off that you end up with neither side really creating many chances and dominating the game. But so far it's a game of chess in the second half. But chess, despite it being that, it remains Brighton 0, United 0.
And Andrew, just a word on Anthony. Obviously he's carrying that huge price tag around his neck, isn't he? Only 8 goals in all competitions this season. Do you think he's still struggling to adapt to footballing life in England?
I think he is, to a degree. I mean, you have to remember, he had such a spectacular start. I think he scored in 3 consecutive games when he was starting under Ten Hag. Ten Hag knows him from their days at Ajax, so I think he's used him quite sparingly. But when you're at a club like United, it's fairly difficult to be an established starter, and he's not in any control at all over the price tag that they paid for him. They paid what the market dictated his value to be. So I don't think he seems overly troubled. He seems a little bit anxious today, if I'm being honest, almost like he really wants to try and make an impact, recognising the importance of an FA Cup semi-final. But I think after a few more months at the club, he'll probably settle down and maybe will become the player that Ten Hag thought that they were buying. But you're right, he's not had a decent run of appearances, not had a decent run of form, and has just been fairly inconsistent. But yeah, he's still very, very young, early 20s, so maybe it's just a question of giving him a bit more time.
Still goalless though at Wembley Stadium. Brighton 0, Manchester United 0. This is Football Live on Brilla FM. Rangers are looking to get back on level terms at Pittodrie against Aberdeen. Here's Leon Jones.
Yeah, I've just about recovered from that Liam Scales goal to tell you about the chance for Rangers. And it was Alfredo Morelos. He was just on the edge of the box, and he snatched at it really, and he didn't connect, and he's hit it out almost for a throw-in really. But Rangers, they've had better attacking play in the last 5 minutes, but they've not been clinical. And this is the story of the first half, and it's carried through to the second half. And I don't think either side could have seen this goal coming for Aberdeen. But 55 minutes gone, it's Aberdeen 1, Rangers 0.
Featured match, of course, in the Bundesliga is at the Bayer Arena. Leverkusen against Leipzig. We'll be crossing back to Richard Freckleton very shortly for an update on that goal at that game. I can tell you there's been a second goal now at Pittodrie. And amazingly,
powered by NairaBet.
Just as we came off the line there to Leon Jones, Aberdeen have taken a 2-goal lead now against Rangers. It was certainly always going to be a fairly close game, I think. Bojan Miovski has scored the second goal there for Aberdeen, who lead Rangers by 2-0. Just ahead of the game, we were mentioning, of course, that Aberdeen had certainly run Rangers pretty close this season in their 2 previous encounters. They met, of course, in the Scottish League Cup semi-final in January. Rangers winning 2-1 after extra time on that occasion. And then back in December at Pittodrie, Rangers winning 3-2. But Aberdeen now 2-0 up at home to Rangers. Let's hear about that second goal from Leon Jones.
2-0 to Aberdeen. Rangers defence are falling asleep. Suter and Ben Davis and Barisic, 3 of them are there. Nobody can pick up Miovski. What a cross by Leighton Clarkson. And Miovski heads it home to possibly make it Aberdeen 2, Rangers 0. But there is a VAR check for offside, so let's hang fire on that one.
Yeah, confirmation that has gone to a VAR check, so we will keep you fully informed as to what occurs there just as soon as we can here on Football Live on Brilla FM. Big chance at Wembley Stadium, Andrew Bonacore.
Amazing chance for Brighton and a stunning save from David De Gea. And of course, it's Mitoma with a spectacular left-footed sliced across the ball from the edge of the box after a headed clearance from a Brighton corner. I was just noting down that United seemed fairly comfortable in defence, but Mitoma almost getting the breakthrough. I just feel like with a little bit more pressure, Brighton could get that opening goal. And in fact, they go close again with a header from a corner. Still 0-0, but Brighton are starting to create chances.
And we have a verdict on that VAR decision at Pittodrie, whereby the goal has been given. Let's confirmation of that now from Leon Jones.
Yeah, goal given. And what a start to the second half for Aberdeen. Pittodrie, the atmosphere in here is absolutely bouncing. The team in third in the league are, can you call it a shock with the form Aberdeen have been on? Not really. They're finally looking like they're going to break their duck against Rangers. It's Aberdeen 2, Rangers 0. What a half this has been for Aberdeen so far.
Absolutely. 14 matches without a win in all competitions against Rangers prior to this afternoon. But Aberdeen at the moment well placed to secure all 3 points this afternoon. Let's get an update from the Bayer Arena now. Leverkusen against Leipzig. Richard Freckleton.
Yes, it's still Bayer Leverkusen 1, Leipzig 0. They are resolute at the back, strong defensively, Leverkusen. And since Nkuku has come on, there has been no change at all. No chances created, nothing at all. And I've seen what Leverkusen are all about. Strong in defence. They're quite happy to give you possession. I mean, the stats of the first half, it was 35% possession of Leverkusen compared to Leipzig 65. But they've had no impact at all so far. But there's still a long way to go with 30 minutes left on the clock. But it remains Bayer Leverkusen 1, Leipzig 0.
As we continue to go around the grounds here on Football Live, let's head back to the San Siro, closing in on half-time. Milan against Lecce. Are Milan still heading towards a half-time lead in that game? Matt Temporal.
It certainly looks that way. We are fastly approaching half-time. It's just turned a little bit nasty, this game. A few little petty actions by both teams. The Lecce players, specifically Federico Di Francesco, trying to get a very, very cheap penalty from Mike Magnon. No way was that ever going to be given, but it's just led to a few little nasty challenges and niggles that, you know, this game could possibly do with, to be honest. It's been a little bit lackluster. Some of the football's been nice by Milan, but they won't care. They're winning 1-0, and that's all that matters to them. It's Milan 1, Lecce 0, approaching half-time.
So just to briefly confirm the latest scores for you in our featured matches currently in progress in the FA Cup semi-final. Brighton 0, Manchester United 0. It remains Bayer Leverkusen 1, Leipzig 0, Aberdeen 2, Rangers 0, and Milan 1, Lecce 0. They've reached half-time now at the San Siro. This is Football Live.
4 hours of football every Saturday and Sunday on Brilla FM with Football Live.
But it always starts with us.
All the key action from around Europe's top leagues.
Wow. Just wow.
Will the Serie A top scorer strike again? After his stoppage time consolation goal against Milan in the Champions League semi-final, Victor Osimhen is back playing in Italy later on this afternoon when Napoli take on Juventus in Turin. The Nigerian superstar has 21 goals in the league so far, and for every goal he scores in this match, our partners at NairaBet will give you a 500 Naira free bet. So if he scores a hat-trick, you will have 1,500 Naira to play with. Get involved and visit www.nairabet.com/bonus for more info. Minimum acca stake required is 500 Naira. 18 plus only. Please gamble responsibly.
Liverpool take on Tottenham Hotspur. And Fulham up against Manchester City in the Premier League. Next Sunday. Exclusive coverage on Football Live. You are listening to Football Live on Brila FM, powered by NairaBet. Have your say on today's action and interact with Brila FM on Twitter at Brila FM 889, on Facebook at 889 Brila FM, and on Instagram, Brila FM 889.
It's drama you will not want to miss.
Well, against all the odds, Bournemouth are taking the lead and not a single shot on target up to this point.
Yeah, it was a James Ward-Prowse classic. He just kills it beautifully.
Well, it's been absolute chaos.
Yes, Josh. Football's a cruel game. You know, you can have all the possession you want, but if you don't put the ball at the back of the net.
It was, again, Cade and Son, like the good old days.
But this show never disappoints.
Yes, well, it's Brentford 0, Crystal Palace 1 here, and it's Eredivisie who's got the goal.
Oh my word, Josh. I cannot believe how Phil Foden has not made this 2-0.
Yes, Barry, it's a second goal for Borussia Dortmund, and the Deutschschwarz are running away with it now.
Today's show is powered by Hollandia and Chivita. Welcome back. You're listening to Football Live with about 7 minutes or so of the show remaining. Let's head back to Wembley Stadium now for an update on Brighton against Manchester United. And Erik ten Hag has made a change in that game. Andrew Bonacore.
Yes, first sub of the match, and as you say, the first card played by Erik ten Hag. He's taken off Christian Eriksen and brought on Fred. Eriksen, for me, hasn't offered enough going forward, and ten Hag, I think, has recognised the need to try and shore up in front of that centre of defence. But United have had a chance of their own. It's been Anthony, the man who we spoke about a few minutes ago. He had Lewis Dunk dancing in retreat as he cut in from the right-hand side. His shot very easily saved, though, by Sanchez. It's almost end-to-end. Brighton are trying to slow things down when they can, but United are starting to have a little bit more attacking impetus about them. And now that Fred has come on, you can imagine them maybe sitting back, and the likes of Martial and Marcus Rashford have a chance of spending a bit more time going forward. United now have a free kick on the edge of the box, so it's a really attacking performance from both teams now. United are really caught up with Brighton's attacking intent, but it's still Brighton 0, United 0.
Let's head back to Aberdeen against Rangers, and a tactical change has been made in that game. Leon Jones.
Yeah, change for Rangers is an attacking one. Rabbi Matondo is on for Nicholas Raskin. That's an attacker on for a midfielder, and he's a very quick Welsh young winger. I've loved watching him. Being Welsh myself, I think he's a very good young player. And he straight away, he was down the left-hand side, putting a cross into the box, and he's earned his team a corner. And Rangers now, it feels a little bit desperate. Even though there's 25 minutes to go, they're snatching at their chances today. And if they're going to get anything out of this game, they need to be more composed when they get a chance. But they keep snatching at it. And again, not long ago, it was Cantwell's chance that was taken off his foot by Raskin, who has been subbed off now. But there's about 25 minutes left here at Pittodrie, and it's a big result for Aberdeen, but also for Celtic. It's Aberdeen 2, Rangers 0.
Aberdeen, of course, looking for a 7th consecutive win in the Scottish Premiership. They haven't beaten Rangers since 2018, but at the moment they are on their way to doing so. Still plenty of football to be played there, but they are still leading by 2-0 in that game. Let's head back to the Bay Arena now for an update on Leverkusen against Leipzig. Richard Freckleton.
Bayer Leverkusen 1, Leipzig 0. I can't believe that the score has remained at 1-0 because Leipzig with Nkunku had a great chance to equalise, but you've got to give credit to the defenders there. I mean, it was a cross-come shot from Timo Werner. It went into the path of Nkunku in the box, and it would look like a simple tap-in, but remarkable clearance off the line from the Bayer Leverkusen defenders. They really do pack up the defence, and they're playing a bit of a dangerous game here because Leipzig are really piling on the pressure. They've made some substitutes here, and that seems to have worked, but it still remains Bayer Leverkusen 1, Leipzig 0.
Leverkusen then still edging that game at the moment as we close in on the final few minutes of the show here on Football Live. Quick recap of the Premier League scorelines, of course, from this weekend. It all kicked off on Friday evening. Of course, Arsenal 3, Southampton 3. Arsenal coming back from 2-0 and 3-1 down in that game. The other final scores, of course, from the weekend's action: Fulham 2, Leeds United 1, Liverpool 3, Nottingham Forest 2, Leicester 2, Wolves 1, Crystal Palace 0, Everton 0, Brentford 1, Aston Villa 1. And, of course, in the 2 Premier League matches that took place this afternoon, 11 goals in total in those 2 games alone. Newcastle 6, Tottenham 1. Yes, you're not hearing incorrectly. Newcastle 6, Tottenham 1, and Bournemouth 0, West Ham 4 is how it ended at the Vitality Stadium. Let's just give you a couple of latest scores. As you just heard from Richard Freckleton, Leverkusen still leading Leipzig by 1-0 in Italian Serie A. It remains Milan 1, Lecce 0, and at Pittodrie with about 20 minutes remaining, it still is Aberdeen 2, Rangers 0 in that game. Let's head back now for the final time to Wembley Stadium for an update on Brighton against Manchester United. Andrew Bonacore.
Still 0-0 here at Wembley, but evenly poised, I'd say. Brighton have made a change of their own. A defensive one. It's Veltman on for Enciso. Enciso had a couple of decent chances in the first half, but hasn't had much of an impact in the second. So we're just coming to the final 20 minutes of normal time. Still 0-0 here, and down to the managers to try and work out how they will approach the game as it winds down and approaches extra time. But still in the semi-final here at Wembley. It's Brighton 0, Manchester United 0.
And you get the feeling that one goal could clinch that match, or it could go all the way to penalties. Who knows? Who will meet Manchester City in that FA Cup final showpiece on Saturday, the 3rd of June? We will be back next weekend. Plenty of action to look forward to on Saturday, the 29th of April, where our featured matches in the Premier League see Brentford taking on Nottingham Forest, Brighton against Wolves as well. And in addition to that, top European action too, with Leipzig at home to Hoffenheim, Napoli taking on Salernitana, Schalke versus Werder Bremen, Roma against Milan. What a cracker that should be. And Real Madrid at home to Almeria. That all happens next weekend here on Football Live. What an afternoon it's been. That's it from us as we hand you back to our colleagues in Nigeria. A very good evening to you. Today's show was produced by John Kane and powered by Hollandia Civita and our official betting partner, NairaBet.